Part 1. Dawn in the Shadow of Vesuvius. The first whispers of dawn creep silently across the Bay of Naples, painting the eastern horizon in delicate strokes of rose and gold. The Mediterranean Sea, calm as polished bronze, reflects these gentle colors while the ancient city of Pompeii rests in peaceful slumber beneath the protective shadow of Mount Vesuvius. The mountain stands sentinel over the sleeping community, its slopes draped in the soft purple hues of pre-dawn darkness, vineyard terraces cascading down its fertile flanks like frozen waterfalls in the dim light. In the villa of Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, tucked into the prosperous Regio 6th district, the household begins its gentle transition from night to day. The villa, with its red-tiled roof and ochre-painted walls, represents the comfortable prosperity that many Pompeian merchants have achieved through decades of careful trade and wise investment. Marcus, a man of 43 years with graying temples and kind eyes, stirs in his bedchamber as the first bird songs filter through the shuttered windows. His wife Livia, still beautiful at 38 despite the silver threads that now weave through her dark hair, breathes softly beside him, her hand resting gently on his chest, a gesture of unconscious affection that speaks to 20 years of devoted marriage. The house itself seems to exhale slowly as it awakens. Built around a central atrium in the traditional Roman style, the villa embraces the morning light through its compluvium, the rectangular opening in the roof that allows rainwater to collect in the impluvium below. The walls are adorned with frescoes depicting scenes of abundance, grapevines heavy with fruit, dolphins dancing through azure seas, and peaceful garden scenes that mirror the actual garden visible through the columned peristyle. These painted walls have witnessed countless mornings just like this one, and they seem to hold within their pigments the accumulated peace of years of contented living. In the slave quarters, tucked discreetly behind the main living areas, the household staff begins to stir with the practiced quiet of people who understand that their master's comfort depends upon their invisible efficiency. Gaius, the elderly house steward who has served the family for over 2 decades, rises from his simple bed and performs his own brief morning prayers to the household gods. His weathered face, lined with the wisdom of years spent in faithful service, reflects a deep satisfaction with his position. Unlike many slaves in the Roman world, those in Marcus's household are treated with kindness and respect, creating a family atmosphere that extends beyond blood relations. Young Quintus, barely 16 and recently acquired to help in the kitchen, follows Gaius's example with the eagerness of youth seeking approval from his elders. The boy, purchased not from the harsh realities of war or debt, but rescued from abandonment as an infant and raised within the household, knows no other life than this gentle routine. His olive-skinned hands, already skilled in the preparation of the morning meal, move with unconscious grace as he lights the oil lamps that will chase away the last shadows of night. In the kitchen, Claudia Prima, the head cook whose matronly figure and knowing smile have presided over countless family meals, begins the sacred ritual of preparing the day's first sustenance. The kitchen, with its brick ovens and marble countertops, represents the heart of the household's daily rhythm. Clay amphora containing olive oil, wine, and grain stand in neat rows along the walls, their contents representing not just nourishment, but security, the tangible proof of Marcus's successful trading ventures that have brought exotic goods from across the Mediterranean world. The aroma of baking bread begins to waft through the villa as Claudia shapes dough that has been rising since before dawn. This bread, made from the finest wheat imported from Egypt, will grace the family's table alongside local honey, fresh cheese from the countryside, and eggs from the villa's own chickens. The preparation of food is not merely a necessity in this household, but an art form practiced with love and attention to detail that transforms simple ingredients into expressions of care and hospitality. Outside in the narrow streets of Pompeii, the city itself begins its own gentle awakening. The Via della Bendanza, the main thoroughfare that runs east to west of the heart of the city, remains largely empty in these pre-dawn hours, but already the earliest risers are beginning to emerge from their homes. These are the bakers, the fishmongers, the market vendors who must begin their preparations while others still dream, their dedication to their crafts ensuring that the city will have fresh bread, fish, and produce when the majority of citizens emerge to face the day. Lucius Cornelius Maximus, whose bakery sits just 3 blocks from Marcus's villa, has been awake for over an hour, his powerful arms already kneading the day's first batch of bread. The baker, A freed slave who earned his manumission through years of faithful service and exceptional skill, now owns one of Pompeii's most successful bakeries. His shop, identifiable by the distinctive millstones that grind grain in the front room, represents the Roman ideal of social mobility through hard work and dedication. The rhythmic sound of Lucius's work, the soft thump of dough against the marble kneading surface, the gentle scrape of the peel against the oven floor, the quiet crackle of burning wood, creates a meditative soundtrack that has marked countless dawns in this ancient city. His apprentices, young men eager to learn the mysteries of fermentation and fire, watch with reverent attention as their master demonstrates techniques passed down through generations of bakers. There is something almost sacred in this daily transformation of simple grain into the bread that will sustain the community, a miracle of human skill and natural process that never loses its wonder for those who practice it with devotion. As the light grows stronger, painting the volcanic stones of Pompeii's streets in warm hues of gold and amber, other sounds begin to join the baker's morning symphony. The soft lowing of cattle being led to pasture outside the city walls, the gentle splash of water as early risers visit the public fountains to fill their daily vessels, the muffled conversations of neighbors greeting each other with the comfortable familiarity of people who have shared the same streets and concerns for years. All these sounds weave together to create the audio tapestry that has defined Pompeian mornings for decades. The city's water system, one of the marvels of Roman engineering, begins its daily service as the aqueduct brings fresh mountain water through lead pipes to public fountains, private homes, and the great public baths. The sound of flowing water, constant and reassuring, provides a liquid-based note to the morning's awakening chorus. This abundance of clean, fresh water, taken for granted by the citizens who have never known its absence, represents one of the countless benefits of living within the embrace of Roman civilization. In the grander villas of the wealthy, like that of Marcus Aurelius, private gardens begin to reveal their beauty as the growing light illuminates carefully tended flower beds, fruit trees heavy with ripening produce, and herb gardens that will provide both culinary delights and medicinal remedies. These gardens, designed not merely for beauty but as expressions of the Roman ideal of bringing nature into harmony with human habitation, represent countless hours of careful cultivation and loving attention. The villa's garden features a central fountain where water falls in gentle cascades over carved marble, creating a sound that has lulled the family to sleep on countless warm evenings, and now provides a peaceful accompaniment to the morning's awakening. Fig trees, their broad leaves already catching the early light, will soon provide sweet fruit for the family's table. Grapevines, trained along wooden trellises, promise another abundant harvest that will fill the villa's wine cellars with the rich, dark vintage that has made this region famous throughout the empire. As Marcus finally opens his eyes, fully awakened by the gentle sounds of his household's morning preparations, he feels a familiar sense of gratitude that has marked the beginning of each day for as long as he can remember. This gratitude is not the desperate relief of a man who has escaped disaster, but rather the quiet satisfaction of someone who has found his place in the world and recognizes the blessing of another day in which to enjoy it. He stretches slowly, savoring the comfort of his soft mattress stuffed with wool and feathers, the warmth of the light blanket that has protected him through the cool pre-dawn hours, and the reassuring presence of his beloved wife beside him. Through the window, barely visible in the growing light, Mount Vesuvius stands unchanged, its slopes covered with the green of vineyards and olive groves, its peak wreathed in the morning mist that often clings to the high places in the hour before sunrise. To Marcus, as to all the citizens of Pompeii, the mountain represents not threat but blessing. Its fertile slopes provide the rich soil that makes their wine famous throughout the empire. Its forests supply timber for their buildings and fuel for their hearths, and its imposing presence serves as a landmark that guides ships safely into the harbor of nearby Puteoli. The mountain has stood unchanged throughout Marcus's lifetime, throughout his father's lifetime, throughout the lifetime of his grandfather's grandfather. It is as permanent as the stones beneath their feet, as reliable as the sunrise that now begins to paint its eastern slopes in shades of gold and rose. There is no reason to fear such constancy, no cause to question such enduring stability. This morning, like countless mornings before it, promises nothing more dramatic than the gentle satisfaction of familiar routines performed with love and attention. It is a morning that speaks to profound contentment possible in a life lived within the embrace of family, community, and the enduring stability of Roman civilization. As Marcus prepares to rise and greet this new day, he carries with him the peaceful certainty that tomorrow will bring another morning just like this one, and the day after that another, stretching forward in an unbroken chain of simple blessings that make life not just bearable, but beautiful. The city of Pompeii awakens completely now, ready to embrace another day of the gentle rhythms that have sustained it for generations, unaware that this particular dawn marks the beginning of the last ordinary day in its 2,000-year history. Part 2. The Merchant's Morning Rituals. As the golden light of dawn filters through Compluvium and dances across the mosaic dolphins in his atrium, Marcus Aurelius Flavianus begins the sacred morning rituals that have anchored his days for over 2 decades. The routine is as familiar as breathing, yet each morning it brings him a fresh sense of peace and purpose that sets the tone for all that follows. Rising slowly from his comfortable bed, he pauses to listen to the gentle sounds of his household awakening. The soft murmur of servants beginning their duties, the distant splash of water being drawn from a well, and the barely audible prayers of his wife Livia as she performs her own morning devotions in the adjacent chamber. Marcus's feet touch the cool marble floor, polished smooth by years of daily passage, and he moves with the unhurried grace of man who has learned to find meditation in the simplest actions. His sleeping tunic, made of the finest linen imported from Egypt and dyed a soft cream color that speaks to prosperity without ostentation, falls gracefully around his knees as he stands and stretches, feeling his muscles awaken along with his mind. The morning air carries the scent of jasmine from a peristyle garden, mixed with the comforting aroma of baking bread that signals Claudia Prima has already begun preparing the family's morning meal. The merchant's first destination is always the Lurarium, the household shrine that occupies a place of honor in a niche near the atrium. This small but beautifully appointed altar represents the spiritual heart of the villa, where the family's protective spirits reside and where daily communion with the divine takes place. The Lurarium itself is a masterpiece of domestic artistry, painted with scenes of the Lauras, the household gods, dancing gracefully while holding cornucopias overflowing with symbols of abundance. The genius of the paterfamilias, Marcus's own protective spirit, stands central to the composition, depicted as a young man in a toga pouring libations from a patera. Marcus approaches the shrine with a reverence that has never diminished despite countless repetitions of this ritual. On the marble shelf before the painted figures, he has arranged the day's offerings with the same care his father taught him as a boy, and his father's father before that. A small bronze bowl holds the finest wine from their vineyard, a vintage that has aged 7 years in clay amphorae buried in the villa's cool cellar. Beside it, honey cakes shaped like tiny wheat sheaves glisten golden in the morning light, their surfaces dusted with precious cinnamon brought from the distant lands beyond Egypt where Marcus's trading ships venture in search of exotic goods. The wine, when poured slowly onto the altar's marble surface, creates thin rivulets that catch the light like liquid gold. Marcus watches its flow with meditative attention, seeing in this simple act a symbol of the abundance that has blessed his family and a promise of continued prosperity for the day ahead. The honey cakes, when broken and scattered before the painted gods, release their sweet aroma into the air, mixing with the incense that burns continuously in a small bronze burner shaped like a dolphin, a creature sacred to the sea that has brought Marcus's fortune through decades of careful trading. As he performs these ancient rituals, Marcus whispers prayers that blend gratitude for past blessings with humble requests for continued protection. His Latin, polished by years of education and refined by association with Rome's cultured merchants, flows as smoothly as the wine he pours, each phrase carefully chosen to express his genuine devotion. He thanks the gods for the safe return of his ships from their recent voyage to Alexandria, for the health of his family and household, for the continued prosperity of his business ventures, and for the peace that has blessed the empire throughout his lifetime. The prayers are not mere recitations of memorized formulas, but heartfelt conversations with divine forces that Marcus genuinely believes guide and protect his daily life. He speaks of his concerns for the upcoming grape harvest, his hopes for his young nephew's advancement in the Roman bureaucracy, and his gratitude for another night of peaceful sleep beside his beloved wife. These morning devotions connect him not only to the gods, but to his ancestors who performed similar rituals in this very spot, creating an unbroken chain of devotion that stretches back through generations of successful merchants and respected citizens. The ritual completed, Marcus turns to find Livia approaching with a serene grace that first captured his heart 23 years ago at a wedding feast in Rome. She wears a simple but elegant stole of pale blue silk, its color reminiscent of the Bay of Naples on a perfect morning, and her dark hair is arranged in the modest style favored by respectable matrons, pulled back and secured with ivory pins carved with tiny flowers. Her presence brings an immediate warmth to the atrium, and Marcus feels a familiar surge of gratitude for the harmonious partnership they have built together through years of shared joys and weathered difficulties. "The gods smile upon us this morning," Livia says softly, her voice carrying the musical quality that comes from a lifetime of cultivated speech and genuine contentment. "I dreamed of dolphins dancing in sunlight, surely a sign of favorable wind for trade." Her words reflect not superstition, but the comfortable relationship with the divine that permeates every aspect of Roman domestic life. Dreams, omens, and signs are woven naturally into the fabric of daily decision-making, adding a layer of spiritual significance to even the most mundane activities. Together, they move to the triclinium, the dining room that opens onto the peristyle garden, where the morning meal has been arranged with the attention to detail that characterizes every aspect of their household routine. The room itself represents a perfect fusion of comfort and elegance, walls painted with delicate garden scenes that seem to extend the actual garden beyond its physical boundaries, creating an illusion of dining in an endless bower of flowering vines and fruit-laden trees. The floor features an intricate mosaic depicting the four seasons as beautiful women carrying the gifts of their respective times of year, a reminder that prosperity flows from harmony with natural cycles. The dining couches, upholstered in deep green fabric woven with golden threads, invite leisurely conversation and unhurried enjoyment of both food and companionship. Marcus and Livia recline in the traditional manner, though their morning meal is simpler than the elaborate evening banquets they occasionally host for business associates and friends. This simplicity reflects not economy, but wisdom, the understanding that daily contentment comes from appreciating basic pleasures rather than constantly seeking elaborate entertainments. Claudia Prima has arranged a meal with artistic precision on low wooden tables that can be easily moved to accommodate the diner's comfort. The bread, still warm from the oven and displaying a distinctive lattice pattern that marks it as a product of their household's kitchen, sits alongside small bowls of golden honey. White cheese so fresh, it still holds the imprint of the woven basket in which it was formed, and black olives that glisten with their own oil. The wine, mixed with water in the proper proportion and served in elegant glass cups that catch and scatter the morning light, provides a perfect accompaniment to this feast of simple abundance. As they eat, Marcus and Livia engage in the quiet conversations that have sustained their marriage through 2 decades of shared life. Today's discussion centers on practical matters touched with genuine affection, plans for their daughter's upcoming visit from Rome, where she lives with her husband, a promising young senator whose career Marcus has quietly supported through strategic introductions and carefully chosen gifts. They speak of the vineyard's prospect for the coming harvest, noting that the early morning mist has been particularly heavy this year, which the old vine tenders claim signals an exceptional vintage. Livia shares news from her correspondence with friends throughout the region, marriages, births, business successes, and the small social developments that knit together the community of prosperous families to which they belong. Her letters, written in an elegant hand on the finest papyrus and sealed with the family's dolphin signet, maintain connections that extend their household's influence far beyond Pompeii's walls, while providing her the intellectual stimulation that comes from engaging with cultured women who share interests in literature, philosophy, and domestic arts. Marcus, in turn, discusses his business concerns with the openness that characterizes their partnership. Unlike many Roman husbands who consider commercial matters inappropriate for feminine attention, he values Livia's insights and often seeks her counsel on important decisions. Her understanding of social dynamics and her intuitive grasp of character have saved him from several potentially costly mistakes in choosing business partners, while her connections among the wives of other merchants have opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed to his ventures. This morning's business discussion focuses on a recent opportunity to invest in a new trading route that would bring rare spices from India directly to Roman tables, bypassing traditional networks controlled by Alexandrian merchants. The venture promises substantial profits, but requires a significant initial investment and partnerships with traders whose reputations, while generally favorable, are not yet proven through years of successful collaboration. Marcus values Livia's perspective on such matters because her approach balances practical considerations with intuitive assessment of character that have proven remarkably accurate over the years. As they talk, the morning light shifts gradually across the garden, illuminating different sections of their carefully tended paradise. The roses, planted along the colonnade that surrounds the peristyle, release their perfume into the warming air, while bees move lazily from flower to flower in the herb garden where mint, basil, and rosemary grow in neat rows beside the kitchen entrance. A small fountain, fed by the villa's connection to the city's aqueduct system, provides a constant gentle murmur that serves as background music to their conversation. Its splash and gurgle creating a sound that has become so familiar they notice it only when occasionally it falls silent for maintenance. The breakfast conversation extends naturally into planning for the day ahead. Marcus will visit his warehouse near the harbor to inspect a recent shipment of fine pottery from Gaul, meet with potential investors in the spice trading venture, and review accounts with his freedman secretary, Lucius Antonius, whose mathematical skills and absolute honesty have made him invaluable to the business's continued expansion. Livia plans to spend the morning supervising the household slaves in their weekly deep cleaning of the villa's public rooms, then devote the afternoon to working on an elaborate tapestry that will eventually grace the wall of their daughter's new home in Rome. These plans, discussed with the comfortable familiarity of people whose lives have settled into rhythms that bring satisfaction without monotony, represent the accumulation of choices made wisely over many years. Marcus's business success stems not from dramatic gambles or sudden inspirations, but from consistent attention to detail, fair dealing with partners and competitors alike, and the gradual building of trust that enables increasingly profitable ventures. Livia's management of their domestic life creates the stable foundation that allows Marcus to focus on commerce while ensuring that their household remains a haven of peace and hospitality. As the morning progresses toward the time when Marcus must leave for his business appointments and Livia must begin her household supervision, they savor these final moments of shared tranquility. The routine they have created together over 2 decades of marriage has evolved into something approaching perfection. Not the perfection of excitement or novelty, but the deeper satisfaction that comes from lives lived in harmony with each other and with the larger rhythms of their community and their world. Neither suspects that this particular morning's ritual will be remembered not as one of countless similar mornings, but as a final expression of a way of life that will soon become as permanent and preserved as the frescoes on their walls, captured forever in a moment before everything changed. Part 3. The Baker's Pre-Dawn Dedication. In the deepest hour of night, when even the most restless citizens of Pompeii have surrendered to sleep and the streets fly empty beneath a canopy of stars, Lucius Cornelius Maximus awakens without the aid of any timepiece or servant's call. His body, conditioned by 30 years of identical routines, recognizes the precise moment when darkness begins its subtle retreat toward dawn. The baker's internal rhythm has become so perfectly attuned to the cycles of his craft that he rises each morning as naturally as flowers turn toward the sun, guided by an instinct deeper than conscious thought. The small apartment above his bakery remains shrouded in darkness as Lucius sits on the edge of his simple wooden bed, taking a moment to offer silent thanks for another night's rest and another opportunity to practice the ancient craft that has given meaning and purpose to his life. His quarters are modest but comfortable, a single room furnished with the essentials of a man who finds his true fulfillment not in possessions, but in the daily miracle of transforming grain into sustenance. A wooden chest holds his few changes of clothing. A small shelf displays a handful of treasured scrolls containing recipes passed down through generations of bakers, and a niche in the wall serves as his personal shrine where a small bronze figurine of Vesta, goddess of hearth and home, watches over his domestic peace. At 52, Lucius carries himself with the quiet dignity of a man who has found his place in the world through honest labor and unwavering dedication. His body tells the story of his profession. Broad shoulders developed from years of lifting heavy sacks of grain, powerful forearms sculpted by countless hours of kneading dough, and hands that become sensitive instruments capable of determining the perfect texture and consistency through touch alone. His face, whether by the heat of ovens and marked by laughter lines earned through decades of pleasant interactions with customers, reflects the deep contentment of someone who has discovered that true wealth lies not in silver or gold, but in the satisfaction of work done well and the respect of one's community. Born a slave in the household of a Roman senator, Lucius learned the baker's trade as a young boy under the tutelage of an old Greek freedman whose knowledge of fermentation and grain had made him invaluable to his master's kitchen. The Greek Xenophon became more than a teacher. He was a father figure who recognized exceptional talent in the eager young slave and nurtured it with patient instruction and endless encouragement. Under Xenophon's guidance, Lucius learned not merely the mechanical aspect of bread making, but the deeper understanding that transforms craft into art. The ability to read the subtle signs of properly risen dough, to adjust techniques for variations in weather and humidity, and to maintain the steady, even heat that produces the perfect crust. When Lucius earned his freedom at the age of 28, a reward for years of faithful service and exceptional skill, he used his savings to purchase the small bakery where he now works. The shop, located on a side street just off the Via dell'Abbondanza, had belonged to an aging baker whose sons had chosen different professions, leaving no one to carry on the family tradition. Lucius saw in the abandoned ovens not just a business opportunity, but a calling, a chance to serve his adopted community while practicing the craft that had become the defining passion of his life. The bakery itself occupies the ground floor of a modest two-story building typical of Pompeii's commercial district. The front room houses the large volcanic stone mills where grain is ground into flour, their circular shape and central pivot posts creating shadows that dance in the lamplight like ancient monuments to the eternal cycle of harvest and consumption. Behind the mills, the work area contains marble kneading surfaces worn smooth by generations of bakers, wooden shelves that hold rising loaves, and the massive brick ovens that represent the heart of the operation. Deep chambers capable of holding dozens of loaves while maintaining precise temperatures necessary for perfect baking. This morning, as every morning for the past 24 years, Lucius begins his day by lighting the oil lamps that will chase away the darkness and provide illumination for the hours of work ahead. The flames flicker to life one by one, their warm glow revealing the familiar workspace that has become as much a part of him as his own heartbeat. The lamplight plays across surfaces dusted with flour, creating an almost magical atmosphere where every tool and surface seems touched with silver powder that sparkles like stardust in the gentle radiance. The first task, as always, is to stoke the ovens that have been banked overnight with carefully arranged coals to maintain a low, steady heat. Lucius moves with practiced efficiency, adding precisely the right amount of seasoned oak, wood to bring the temperature up gradually to the levels necessary for baking. The wood, stored in the narrow alley behind the shop and aged for at least 2 years to ensure it burns cleanly without imparting unwanted flavors to bread, catches fire with satisfying crackles and pops that provide the morning's first musical accompaniment to his work. As the ovens begin their slow climb toward baking temperature, Lucius turns his attention to the dough that has been rising overnight in large ceramic vessels covered with clean linen cloths. This dough, prepared the evening before with flour, water, salt, and the precious sourdough starter that is maintained for over a decade, represents one of the many miracles that still fill him with wonder despite countless repetitions. The transformation of simple ingredients into living, breathing dough that doubles and triples in size through the mysterious action of wild yeast continues to seem magical, a daily reminder of forces beyond human understanding that collaborate in the ancient alchemy of bread making. The sourdough starter itself is Lucius's most precious possession, a living culture descended from a starter given to him by his mentor Xenophon, who claimed it had been passed down through 7 generations of Greek bakers. Fed daily with flour and water, maintained at precisely the right temperature and consistency, this bubbling, fragrant culture serves as a foundation for every loaf that emerges from his ovens. Its care requires the devotion of a parent tending a beloved child, for any neglect or mistake could kill the delicate balance of microorganisms that give his bread its distinctive flavor and texture. Checking each vessel of rising dough requires all of Lucius's accumulated skill and experience. He examines the surface for the subtle signs that indicate perfect fermentation, the slightly domed appearance that shows the dough has risen properly but not overproofed, the faint sheen that indicates optimal moisture content, and the delicate aroma that speaks of healthy yeast activity. His practice, I can detect variations invisible to others. Dough that needs another hour of rising, dough that is ready for shaping, or the occasional batch that must be discarded because temperature fluctuations or contamination have compromised the fermentation process. The physical act of kneading begins the day's most meditative period. Lucius transfers the risen dough to his marble work surface, its cool smoothness providing the perfect foundation for the rhythmic manipulation that will develop the gluten structure necessary for proper bread texture. His hands, dusted with flour to prevent sticking, begin the ancient dance of folding, pressing, and turning that transforms a soft, sticky mass into smooth, elastic dough that springs back when pressed with finger. The kneading process requires not just physical strength, but a deep understanding of how dough responds to different techniques and pressures. Too little kneading produces bread with poor structure that crumbles when cut. Too much kneading can overwork the gluten, resulting in tough, chewy loaves that lack the tender crumb that marks exceptional bread. Lucius has developed an intuitive sense for the precise moment when dough reaches optimal development, recognizing the subtle changes in texture and elasticity that indicate the gluten has been properly developed without being overworked. As he works, Lucius finds himself entering a state of peaceful concentration that borders on meditation. The repetitive motions of his hands, the steady rhythm of folding and pressing, and the gradual transformation he can feel beneath his palms create a connection to the ancient craft that transcends mere technique. He is participating in a ritual that stretches back to the beginning of civilization, when the first bakers discovered that grain mixed with water and heated over fire could sustain life and build communities. The arrival of his apprentices breaks the solitary peace, but adds a different kind of satisfaction to the morning's work. Gaius, at 19 still eager to prove himself worthy of the master's trust, arrives first with the punctuality that Lucius demands and enthusiasm that makes teaching a joy rather than a burden. Behind him comes Marcus Drusus, a 16-year-old whose family has arranged his apprenticeship as much to instill discipline and work ethic as to learn a trade. Both young men have been with Lucius for over a year, long enough to have mastered the basic techniques, but still developing the subtle understanding that separates competent craftsmen from true masters. "Good morning, master," Gaius says with genuine respect, already moving to light additional lamps and prepare the tools they will need for the morning's production. His movements show the efficiency of someone who has absorbed not just the technical skills of baking, but the deeper understanding of how a well-run workshop operates. Lucius watches with quiet pride as a senior apprentice demonstrates the care and attention to detail that mark a true craftsman in the making. Marcus, still rubbing sleep from his eyes, follows Gaius's example with the slightly mechanical precision of someone still learning to find joy in early rising and hard work. Lucius remembers his own early struggles with the baker's demanding schedule and feels patient sympathy for the boy's efforts to adapt to routines that challenge every natural instinct to remain warm and comfortable in bed. Today we will focus on shaping. Lucius tells his apprentices as they gather around the marble work surface where he has begun dividing the kneaded dough into individual portions. Watch carefully how the dough responds to different pressures. See how it springs back when properly developed. Feel how it should neither stick to your hands nor tear when stretched. These are the signs that tells the dough is ready for final shaping. The lesson that follows combines practical instruction with the kind of wisdom that can only be gained through years of experience. Lucius demonstrates how to form each portion of dough into the classic Roman loaf shape, his hands moving with economical precision as he explains the reasons behind each motion. The surface tension created by proper shaping will help the bread maintain its form during the final rise and baking. The seam placement affects how the loaf expands in the oven. Even the gentle way he places each shaped loaf on the wooden peels that will carry them into the oven serves a purpose. Rough handling at this stage can collapse the delicate structure built through hours of careful fermentation. As the shaped loaves begin their final rise, cover with clean linen cloths to prevent the formation of skin that would limit their expansion, Lucius and his apprentices turn their attention to the ovens. The fire that has been burning steadily for over an hour has heated the brick chambers to the precise temperature needed for optimal baking. Testing the heat requires no thermometer. Lucius simply holds his hand near the oven opening, his experienced senses immediately recognizing when conditions are perfect for loading the bread. The loading process itself requires careful choreography. Each loaf must be placed quickly and precisely to make efficient use of the oven space, while ensuring even heat circulation around every piece. The long wooden peels, wielded with the skill of a swordsman, slide loaves deep into the oven chambers where they will undergo their final transformation from pale, soft dough into golden, crusty bread that will nourish the awakening city. As the first batch of bread begins its journey in the oven's heat, Lucius allows himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Another day's production is underway, continuing the unbroken chain of service that has sustained Pompeii's citizens for generations. The rhythms of his craft connect him to the eternal cycles of growth and harvest, fermentation and fire, that have nourished human civilization since the dawn of agriculture. In this moment of pause between the morning's preparation and the afternoon sales, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of his beloved bakery, Lucius embodies the deep contentment that comes from a life devoted to meaningful work performed with skill, dedication, and love. Part 4. Children's Innocent Games. In the sun-dappled courtyard of a modest but comfortable home on the Via di Nola, where morning light filters through the leaves of an ancient fig tree and creates patterns of gold and shadow on the worn stone pavement, 8-year-old Julia Claudia sits cross-legged on a soft woolen cushion, her dark eyes bright with the concentrated joy of imagination unleashed. Before her, arranged with the meticulous care that only children bring to their most important endeavors, lies an entire world in miniature. A collection of clay figurines, painted wooden toys, and treasured natural objects that together form a foundation for adventures limited only by the boundless creativity of a young mind untouched by the constraints and worries that shadow adult existence. Julia herself is a picture of innocent contentment, her small face framed by glossy black curls that escape despite her mother's careful morning braiding, her tunic of soft yellow linen, dyed with expensive saffron that speaks to her family's comfortable circumstances, already bearing the telltale stains of morning spent in serious play. Her feet, bare in the warmth of the sheltered courtyard, reveal the calluses and scrapes that mark a childhood lived in joyful exploration of her surroundings. She possesses that particular beauty of childhood that lies not in perfect features, but in the radiant animation that comes from a spirit completely absorbed in the present moment, unmarked by past regrets or future anxieties. Beside her, 5-year-old Quintus Claudius, her younger brother and constant companion in adventure, provides a study in contrasts. Where Julia's play tends toward elaborate narratives and complex character development, Quintus approaches their games with the direct enthusiasm of someone still discovering the basic mechanics of the world around him. His sturdy little body, already showing the promise of the tall, strong man he will become, moves with the unconscious grace of early childhood as he manipulates his own collection of treasured toys, a wooden chariot with wheels that actually turn, painted lead soldiers arranged in formations he doesn't quite understand but finds deeply satisfying, and a collection of smooth stones that serve as everything from precious gems to mighty fortresses, depending on the day's adventures. Their mother, Claudia Maxima, watches from her position in the shade of the colonnade that surrounds the peristyle garden, her hands busy with the eternal feminine task of mending while her heart finds deep satisfaction in observing the innocent happiness of her children's play. At 34, she embodies a Roman ideal of the devoted mother and competent household manager, her dark hair arranged in the simple but elegant style appropriate to a respectable matron, her stola of deep blue wool decorated with a subtle border pattern that indicates her family's solid middle-class status without ostentation or pretense. The courtyard itself serves as the perfect stage for childhood imagination, paved with smooth stones worn to silk by generations of daily use, surrounded by columns that support the roof over the walkway, and centered around a small but beautifully carved fountain whose gentle splash provides constant background music. The space represents a protected heart of domestic life, where children can explore and learn in safety. Planted beds along the walls contain herbs for cooking and medicine, rosemary, thyme, mint, and basil, their fragrances mixing with the sweeter scents of the roses and jasmine that climb the columns in carefully trained profusion. The fig tree that dominates one corner of the courtyard has become an integral part of the children's play world. Its broad, spreading branches provide shade and shelter, while its massive trunk offers a natural backdrop for the elaborate scenarios that unfold daily in its shadow. The tree itself is ancient, planted by the children's grandfather when he first established the household, and its seasonal cycles of leaf and fruit mark the passage of time in ways more meaningful to children than any calendar or sundial. In spring, its fresh green leaves herald the season of outdoor play. In summer, its deep shade provides refuge from the heat. In autumn, its sweet purple figs become treasures to be gathered and shared. And in winter, its bare branches create intricate patterns against the sky that spark new stories and adventures. Today's game has evolved into an elaborate recreation of gladiatorial games, inspired by stories the children have heard from their father about the magnificent spectacles he witnessed during his last trip to Rome. Julia has appointed herself as the empress presiding over the games. Sitting regally on a cushion, she is positioned to serve as a throne, while Quintus serves as both gladiator and announcer, his young voice rising and falling with dramatic flourishes as he narrates the epic battles unfolding in the miniature arena they had constructed from overturned pottery and arranged stones. "Behold," Quintus declares, holding aloft a clay figurine painted to represent a muscular warrior armed with sword and shield. The mighty Spartacus enters the arena to face the terrible lions of Africa. His announcement carries all the gravity and ceremony he can muster, though the effect is somewhat diminished by the way his voice occasionally breaks into giggles at his own dramatic flourishes. Julia, maintaining the dignified bearing she believes appropriate to imperial authority, raises her small hand in what she imagines to be a properly regal gesture. "Let the games begin," she proclaims, then immediately breaks character to whisper conspiratorially to her brother, "Remember, Quintus, the emperor has to decide if the gladiator lives or dies at the end. Father told me they use their thumbs, up for life, down for death." The battle that follows involves elaborate sound effects produced by both children, with Quintus providing the roar of lions and the clash of weapons, while Julia supplies the excited shouts of the crowd. Their clay gladiator faces painted wooden lions with a kind of brave determination that exists only in children's stories, where heroes never truly die and good always triumphs over evil. The figurines dance across the stone pavement in carefully choreographed combat, their movements accompanied by a running commentary that reveals a sophisticated understanding of narrative structure that children develop naturally through constant storytelling play. As the mock battle reaches its climax, Claudia sets aside her mending to observe more closely, marveling as she always does at the creativity and imagination her children display in their play. She remembers her own childhood games in this same courtyard, when she and her siblings created equally elaborate fantasies with the same innocent absorption that now captivates Julia and Quintus. The continuity of childhood across generations fills her with a deep sense of connection to the eternal rhythms of family life, where certain experiences remain constant despite the passage of years and the changes that time inevitably brings. "Mercy! Mercy!" Quintus cries out in a high, dramatic voice as he makes his gladiator figurine fall to its knees before the wooden lions. The great Spartacus appeals to the wisdom and kindness of the divine emperor. His performance includes elaborate gestures and facial expressions that would not be out of place on the stage of a Roman theater, revealing the natural dramatic instincts that Roman education will eventually channel into the oratorical skills essential for civic participation. Julia considers the appeal with a serious concentration of a real judge weighing matters of life and death. Her small face assumes an expression of thoughtful deliberation as she examines the scene before her, clearly taking her imperial responsibilities with appropriate gravity. After a long moment of suspenseful silence, during which Quintus holds his breath in genuine anticipation of her verdict, she raises her thumb in the sign for mercy. "The emperor is pleased with your courage, brave gladiator," she announces in her most formal tone. "You have fought well and deserve to live and fight again another day." Her decision brings obvious relief to Quintus, who apparently became so absorbed in the game that he genuinely worried about his gladiator's fate despite having complete control over the story's development. The gladiatorial games concluded successfully. The children's attention shifts to a different type of play as Julia brings out her collection of treasured objects: shells gathered during family visits to the Bay of Naples, polished stones found during walks in the countryside, colorful glass beads that catch and scatter light like tiny jewels, and pressed flowers that retain the memory of summer meadows between sheets of papyrus. These natural treasures serve as currency in elaborate trading games that teach basic concepts of commerce and negotiation while providing endless entertainment. "I'll trade you 3 spiral shells and this piece of sea glass for your best soldier and the wooden horse," Julia proposes. Display her offered goods with the serious demeanor of a merchant conducting important business. Her collection reflects the careful eye of a natural collector, someone who finds beauty and value in objects that adults might overlook, but which possess special significance for a child's developing aesthetic sense. Quintus examines the proposed trade with equal seriousness, weighing the value of the offered items against his attachment to the toys in question. His wooden soldier, carved by their father during a long winter evening and painted with meticulous detail, holds special significance as both a treasured possession and a tangible symbol of paternal love. The decision requires careful consideration of both practical and emotional factors, providing valuable lessons in decision-making and the complex relationship between material and sentimental value. The soldier is very special to me, Quintus explains, unconsciously echoing negotiations he has observed between adults in the family's modest trading activities. But I really like that blue sea glass, and I don't have any spiral shells in my collection yet. Can I keep the horse and just trade the soldier for 2 shells and the sea glass? The negotiation continues with the kind of patient attention to detail that characterizes children's play when adults refrain from rushing them toward conclusions. Both children seem to understand instinctively that the process of bargaining is as important as the final agreement, that the careful consideration of options and the respectful exchange of different viewpoints serve educational purposes that extend far beyond the simple exchange of toys. Claudia watches these negotiations with quiet pride, recognizing in her children's play the development of skills and values that will serve them well throughout their lives. The patience they show in listening to each other's positions, the fairness they display in considering the relative value of different objects, and the good humor they maintain even when initial proposals are rejected all speak to character traits that careful parental guidance has helped to nurture and develop. As the trading session reaches a mutually satisfactory conclusion, Quintus receives the shells and sea glass, while Julia gains a treasured soldier to add to her growing army of figurines. The children's attention turns to yet another form of entertainment. From a wooden box kept specially for this purpose, Julia produces a collection of knuckle bones, the small ankle bones of sheep that serve as dice in one of the most popular children's games throughout the Roman world. The knucklebone game requires skill, strategy, and no small amount of luck as players attempt to throw and catch the bones in various prescribed patterns. Julia, with the advantage of 3 additional years of practice, demonstrates the basic techniques for her younger brother, showing him how to toss the bones and catch them on the back of his hand, how to pick up specific bones while others remain airborne, and how to execute the more complex maneuvers that separate novice players from accomplished masters of the game. Watch carefully, she instructs, her tone taking on the authority of an experienced teacher. You throw all 5 bones, then try to catch as many as possible on the back of your hand. The ones you catch count as points, but if you drop them all, you lose your turn. Her demonstration shows considerable skill, managing to catch 3 of the 5 bones on her first attempt. A respectable performance that draws admiring applause from Quintus. When Quintus takes his turn, his smaller hands and less developed coordination make the task considerably more challenging, but his determination and good humor in the face of repeated failures demonstrate the resilience and optimism that characterize healthy childhood development. Each unsuccessful attempt brings laughter rather than frustration, and his eventual success in catching even a single bone is celebrated as enthusiastically as if he had achieved a great victory in the Circus Maximus. As the morning progresses toward the time when the sun's heat will drive the family indoors for the sacred afternoon rest, the children's play takes on the dreamy quality that comes when imagination has been given free rein for hours without interruption. Their games flow seamlessly from one scenario to another, incorporating elements of storytelling, physical activity, creative construction, and social interaction in the natural integration that makes childhood play such effective preparation for adult life. The sound of their laughter, mixing with the gentle splash of the fountain and the soft murmur of their mothers' hummed lullabies, creates a symphony of domestic contentment that speaks to the timeless joys of family life lived in security and love. In this protected courtyard, surrounded by the tangible evidence of their parents' care and intangible but powerful sense of belonging that comes from being cherished members of a stable household, Julia and Quintus embody the innocent happiness that adults remember wistfully as the golden standard against which all subsequent pleasures are measured. They play on in blissful ignorance of the larger world's complexities and dangers, their games creating memories that will last a lifetime and developing character traits that will serve them well in whatever future awaits. In this moment of perfect childhood contentment, time seems suspended, allowing the pure joy of innocent play to flourish in the gentle shadow of the ancient fig tree that has sheltered generations of children in their discovery of life's endless possibilities for wonder and delight. Part 5. the afternoon siesta's gentle embrace. As the Mediterranean sun reaches its zenith and begins to pour liquid gold over the red-tiled rooftops of Pompeii, casting everything in a warm, drowsy light that makes shadows seem like pools of cool respite, the entire city begins its gradual surrender to the sacred ritual of the afternoon rest. The transformation is subtle at first. Conversations in the forum grow quieter. The pace of footsteps along the stone-paved streets becomes more leisurely, and merchants begin to arrange their goods with the unhurried movements of people who know that the day's urgent business has given way to something far more precious. The blessed interval of peace that Romans have elevated to an art form as refined as their architecture or poetry. In the villa of Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, where the morning's business discussions and domestic preparations have given way to the gentle languor that accompanies a well-lived day, the household settles into rhythms of rest with the practiced ease of people who understand that true productivity includes knowing when to pause, when to breathe, when to allow the mind and body the restoration that makes all other activities not merely possible but joyful. The marble floors, warmed by hours of sunshine streaming through compluvium, now provide a pleasant contrast to bare feet seeking coolness, while the painted walls seem to shimmer in the golden light that transforms ordinary domestic spaces into chambers of dreams and contemplation. Marcus himself moves through his villa with the satisfied weariness of a man whose morning has been both productive and pleasant. His business correspondence has been attended to, his meetings with potential trading partners have concluded successfully, and his review of the household accounts has revealed the continued prosperity that allows him the luxury of unhurried afternoons. The ledgers now rest securely in his private study, their neat columns of figures recording transactions that connect his modest Pompeian villa to the vast network of commerce that spans the known world. Ships carrying wine to Gaul, pottery to Britain, and exotic spices from mysterious lands beyond Egypt. The transformation of Marcus from merchant to man of leisure occurs gradually, like the shifting of light as clouds move across the sun. He removes the formal toga that marked his morning's business activities, replacing it with a simple tunic of soft linen that allows his skin to breathe in the warming air. His movements become slower, more contemplative, as he releases a focused attention that commercial activities require and allows his mind to settle into the peaceful receptivity that makes rest truly restorative rather than merely inactive. Entering his private chamber, Marcus finds himself drawn to a window that overlooks the villa's garden, where the afternoon light creates a tapestry of green and gold that seems designed specifically to soothe eyes tired from examining scrolls and calculating profits. The grapevines that climb the colonnade around the peristyle cast intricate shadows that shift and dance in the gentle breeze, while the roses planted along the walkways release their fragrance in the air that seems thick with the promise of dreams and peaceful reflection. The bed that awaits him represents one of the small luxuries that successful commerce has made possible. A frame of polished olive wood supporting a mattress stuffed with the finest wool and covered with linen sheets dyed the soft blue of early morning skies. Beside it, a small table holds a silver cup of watered wine flavored with honey and mint, its contents already warming toward the temperature that will make sleep come easily and pleasantly. The pillow, filled with down from geese raised on the villa's small farm outside the city walls, cradles his head with the perfect balance of support and softness that transforms mere rest into genuine restoration. As Marcus settles onto his bed and feels his body begin to relax into familiar embrace of afternoon repose, his thoughts drift like clouds across a summer sky, touching lightly on the day's accomplishments before moving on to the gentle anticipation of evening's pleasures. The sound of his own breathing, deep and regular, mingles with the soft splash of the garden fountain and the distant murmur of bees working among the herb beds to create a natural symphony specifically composed to carry the listener into the realm of peaceful dreams. In the garden itself, Livia has created her own sanctuary for the afternoon's rest. A comfortable couch, positioned to take advantage of both shade and the cooling effect of the fountain spray, serves as a retreat from the morning's household supervision. Beside her, a basket holds her current weaving project, a tapestry depicting scenes from the myth of Proserpina that will eventually grace the wall of their daughter's home in Rome. The work itself has become a form of moving meditation, the repetitive motion of the shuttle through the warped threads, creating a rhythm that calms the mind while producing something both beautiful and useful. The weaving represents more than mere domestic activity. It connects Livia to generations of Roman women who found in such work both creative expression and peaceful contemplation. The threads themselves tell stories. Silk from the distant lands of Ceres, dyed with purple extracted from shells gathered along the coast, and gold thread that catches and holds the afternoon light like captured sunshine. Each pass of the shuttle adds another line to the emerging narrative, another day to the accumulating history of patient craftsmanship that transforms simple materials into treasured heirlooms. As Livia works, her movements gradually slow and become more contemplative, matching the pace of the afternoon itself. The familiar weight of the shuttle in her hand, the gentle tension of the threads, and the gradual emergence of the planned design create a state of peaceful focus that borders on meditation. Her breathing synchronizes with the rhythm of her work, while her mind drifts among pleasant memories and gentle anticipations, creating the perfect mental state for the restoration that comes not from complete inactivity, but from engaging in activities that soothe rather than stimulate, that create rather than consume. The garden around her seems to participate in the afternoon's ritual of rest. Bees move more slowly among the flowers, their buzzing taking on the drowsy quality that marks the heat of the day. Birds seek shade in the deeper recesses of the olive trees, their songs becoming softer and less frequent as they conserve energy for the cooler hours of evening. Even the fountain's splash seems more gentle, as if the water itself recognizes the need for quieter, more soothing sounds during the sacred interval of rest. In the modest home where Julia and Quintus spent their morning in joyful play, the afternoon brings a different but equally important transformation. Claudia Maxima, having supervised the preparation of the midday meal and seen to the comfort of her household, now gathers her children for the rest that growing bodies require to sustain the energy and enthusiasm that make childhood such a time of wonder and discovery. The courtyard that served as a stage for gladiatorial games and trading negotiations now becomes a peaceful haven where small bodies can surrender to the gentle tyranny of sleep. Tiful, Julia, despite her 8 years and the dignity that comes with being the eldest sibling, still finds deep comfort in the afternoon ritual that connects her to the earliest memories of security and love. Her mother's lap, soft with the cushioning that comes from years of good living and the natural changes that motherhood brings to a woman's body, provides a perfect refuge from a morning spent in the intense concentration that childhood play demands. The familiar scent of her mother's skin, mixed with the faint fragrance of the herbs she uses to wash her hair, creates an atmosphere of absolute safety that makes surrender to sleep not just possible but inevitable. Quintus, younger and still more obviously in need of rest, curls against his mother's side with the unconscious grace of a small animal seeking warmth and protection. His sturdy little body, tired from hours of energetic play, relaxes completely as Claudia's gentle hand strokes his dark hair and her soft voice begins a familiar lullaby that has marked the afternoon rest period since his earliest infancy. The words themselves matter less than the rhythm and tone, the musical quality that speaks directly to the primitive parts of the brain that govern sleep and dreams. The lullaby that Claudia hums, learned from her own mother and passed down through generations of Roman women, creates a bridge between past and future, connecting these children to the long chain of mothers and children who have found comfort in the same melodies and the same gentle rhythms. The song tells of dolphins dancing in moonlit seas, of heroes returning safely from distant adventures, of gardens where flowers bloom eternally and no harsh seasons disturb the perfect peace of an idealized natural world. As the children's breathing deepens and becomes more regular, Claudia continues her gentle ministrations, her touch conveying profound love that makes childhood possible and beautiful. Her own eyes grow heavy as the afternoon's peace works its magic on her as well, creating a family tableau of perfect contentment where mother and children rest together in the security of their protected domestic world, surrounded by the tangible evidence of a life lived in harmony with natural rhythms and blessed by the simple abundance that comes from careful attention to life's genuine pleasures. Throughout the city, similar scenes unfold as Pompeii settles into its collective afternoon dream. In the bakery where Lucius Cornelius Maximus began his day before dawn, the master baker now rests on a simple cot behind his shop, his powerful body finally allowed to relax after hours of demanding physical labor. The scent of fresh bread still clings to his clothes and fills the air around him, creating an atmosphere of nourishment and satisfaction that makes sleep come easily despite the narrow confines of his modest quarters. Lucius's rest is the deep, restorative sleep of someone whose body has been thoroughly used in meaningful work. His dreams, when they come, are filled with images of perfectly risen bread, satisfied customers, and a simple contentment that comes from knowing that his daily labor serves an essential need in his community's life. The rhythmic sounds of his breathing mix with the settling sounds of cooling ovens and the distant murmur of the city's afternoon quiet, creating a peaceful environment where exhaustion transforms into restoration. His apprentices, Gaius and Marcus Drusus, share sleeping quarters above the mill room where the great stone wheels rest motionless until tomorrow's grinding begins anew. Their youth makes the afternoon rest less essential but no less welcome, providing time for their bodies to grow and their minds to process the morning's lessons in the ancient craft that will shape their adult lives. Their dreams are filled with the imagery of their chosen profession. Flour falling like snow from grinding wheels, dough rising in mysterious alchemy, and the satisfying sight of golden loaves emerging from the heat of properly tended ovens. Even the city's animals participate in the afternoon's collective rest. Dogs seek shade beneath market stalls and in the doorways of shops, their tongues lolling as they pant gently in the warming air. Cats find cool spots in the shadows of buildings, curling into tight balls of fur that seem designed specifically for efficient heat management. Horses in their stables stand quietly, occasionally stamping a hoof or switching a tail, but otherwise conserving energy for the cooler hours when work will resume. The Forum, that great heart of Pompeian public life, where citizens gather to conduct business, hear news, and engage in political discussions that form the foundation of Roman civic culture, now lies largely empty, except for a few dedicated merchants who maintain their stalls to the heat of the day and the occasional passerby, moving with the leisurely pace that the afternoon hour demands. The great columns that support the covered walkways cast deep shadows that provide refuge for anyone who must venture out during these sacred hours of rest. The public baths, normally centers of social activity, where citizens gather not just for cleanliness, but for the community interaction that Roman culture considers essential to civilized life, now operate at reduced capacity as attendants maintain the complex system of heated pools and steam rooms, while most potential bathers prefer the comfort of their private cool chambers to the additional heat that bathing would bring to already warm bodies. In the amphitheater outside the city walls, where gladiatorial games and wild animal hunts provide the spectacular entertainments that Romans consider necessary for a properly civilized community, the sand lies empty under the blazing sun while the stone seats radiate heat that makes the structure shimmer like a mirage. The gladiators themselves rest in the barracks beneath the arena floor, their powerful bodies recovering from morning training sessions, while they prepare mentally for future contests that will test not only their physical prowess, but their ability to face death with the courage and dignity that Roman audiences demand from their entertainers. As the sun begins its slow journey toward the western horizon, and the shadows start to lengthen imperceptibly, signaling that the afternoon's rest period will eventually give way to the cooler pleasures of evening, Pompeii rests in perfect tranquility. The city breathes with a slow, regular rhythm of collective sleep. Thousands of citizens lost in dreams that range from the practical concerns of daily life to fantastic adventures that the sleeping mind creates from the raw material of memory and desire. This afternoon rest, elevated by Roman culture from mere necessity to sacred ritual, represents one of civilization's great achievements. The understanding that human life requires not constant activity, but careful balance between work and rest, between engagement with the world demands and retreat into restorative peace that makes such engagement sustainable and joyful. In their collective embrace of this ancient wisdom, the citizens of Pompeii demonstrate a sophistication that transcends their technology and reaches toward the timeless truths that make human community both possible and beau. Part 6. Evening Preparations and Simple Pleasures. As the afternoon sun begins its gentle descent toward the distant horizon, painting the sky above Mount Vesuvius in delicate shades of amber and rose, the city of Pompeii stirs slowly from its collective rest with a languid grace, a contented cat stretching in warm sunlight. The air itself seems to exhale the accumulated heat of the day, creating gentle currents that carry the mingled fragrances of jasmine, rosemary, and the salt tang of the nearby sea through streets that moments before lay silent and empty. This is a golden hour, when the harsh brightness of midday softens into the warm, honey-colored light that transforms even the most ordinary activities into moments of quiet beauty and profound satisfaction. In the villa of Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, the transition from rest to gentle activity occurs with the unhurried elegance that characterizes a household where prosperity has created not leisure alone, but the deeper luxury of time. Time to savor each moment. Time to attend to details that make life beautiful rather than merely functional. Time to appreciate the simple abundance that surrounds those fortunate enough to have found their place in the world's grand design. The marble floors, cooled by the afternoon's shadows, provide pleasant relief to bare feet as the household gradually awakens to the promise of evening's gentle pleasures. Marcus emerges from his private chamber refreshed and renewed, his body restored by the afternoon's rest, and his mind clear with the peaceful clarity that comes from allowing thoughts to settle like sediment in still water. His movements carry the relaxed confidence of a man who has learned to work hard when work is required, but to rest completely when rest is appropriate, understanding that this balance between activity and repose represents one of life's most essential skills. The simple linen tunic he wore for his afternoon rest now gives way to a toga of finer wool, dyed a deep blue that speaks to his prosperity, while remaining appropriately modest for a citizen who understands that true elegance lies in restraint rather than ostentation. The evening toilet, that daily ritual of preparation that transforms the private self into the public persona, becomes under Marcus's patient attention a form of moving meditation. The basin of cool water, perfumed with oil of roses and warmed by the addition of heated water brought by attentive servants, provides refreshment for face and hands that have known the day's activities. The bronze mirror, polished to reflect his image with perfect clarity, shows a face marked by the contentment that comes from years of wise choices and fortunate circumstances. The slight lines around his eyes speaking of laughter shared with beloved companions, the silver threading through his dark hair marking the passage of years that have brought wisdom rather than mere age. His personal slave, Titus, a young man whose skilled hands and gentle demeanor have made him indispensable to Marcus's daily comfort, attends to the grooming rituals with a quiet efficiency that comes from years of devoted service and genuine affection between master and servant. The relationship between them transcends the legal definitions that govern their respective positions, creating instead a partnership based on mutual respect and shared dedication to maintaining the standards of elegance and propriety that mark a civilized household. Titus's ministrations include the careful trimming of hair and beard, the application of fragrant oils that leave the skin smooth and pleasantly scented, and the arrangement of the toga's complex folds and patterns that achieve both comfort and a dignified appearance appropriate to Marcus's position in Pompeian society. Each gesture carries the weight of tradition and the satisfaction of skills perfected through constant practice, transforming what might be mere vanity into an expression of respect for social customs and personal dignity. Meanwhile, in the villa's kitchen, a symphony of preparation begins as Claudia Prima, the head cook whose culinary skills have made the household's table a source of justifiable pride, orchestrates the evening meal with the practiced ease of a master craftsman approaching her art. The kitchen itself, with its high windows that allow the day's heat to escape while admitting the gentle breeze that carries a promise of cooler evening air, becomes a stage where simple ingredients undergo transformation into nourishment that satisfies not merely the body's needs, but the soul's desire for beauty and harmony. The evening meal in a prosperous Roman household represents far more than mere sustenance. It embodies a civilized understanding that food shared in love and prepared with care creates bonds between family members and guests that transcend the simple biological necessity of nourishment. Claudia Prima approaches her work with the reverence of someone who understands that cooking is, at its essence, an act of love made manifest through the transformation of raw materials into sustenance that pleases all the senses and creates memories that last far beyond the satisfaction of hunger. The menu for this evening reflects both the season's abundance and the household's refined tastes. Fresh fish from the morning's catch at nearby ports, their silver scales still bright with the memory of Mediterranean waters, vegetables from the villa's own garden, picked at the moment of perfect ripeness and prepared with herbs that release their essential oils only when heated. Bread from Lucius's bakery, its crust golden and its interior soft with the complex flavors that come from proper fermentation, and wine from the family vineyard, aged to the perfect balance of fruit and earth that speaks of soil blessed by Vesuvius's ancient volcanic richness. The preparation of each element requires not just technical skill, but an intuitive understanding of how flavors combine and complement each other, how cooking times affect texture and taste, and how presentation can transform even simple ingredients into dishes that please the eye as well as the palate. Claudia Prima moves among her assistants with the authority of someone whose expertise has been earned through decades of experience. Her directions clear and precise, while remaining patient with those still learning the subtle arts of her profession. The fish, cleaned and scaled with swift, sure movements that waste nothing and damage nothing, receives a preparation that honors both its natural flavor and the skill of those who caught it. A simple marinade of olive oil, lemon juice, and fresh herbs allows the essential taste of the sea to remain prominent, while adding layers of complexity that will develop during the gentle cooking process. The cooking itself, over coals that have been allowed to burn down to the perfect temperature for slow, even heating, requires constant attention and a kind of intuitive timing that cannot be taught but only developed through years of patient practice. The vegetables, selected this morning from the garden plots that surround the villa's main buildings, represent the perfect marriage of human cultivation and natural abundance. Young onions, their white bulbs barely larger than a thumb, and their green tops still tender enough to eat, will provide sweetness and depth to accompany the fish. Tender lettuce leaves, harvested before the day's heat, could wilt their delicate structure, offer coolness and refreshing crispness. Herbs grown in carefully tended beds, oregano, thyme, mint, and the precious silphium imported at great cost from the distant shores of North Africa, contribute their concentrated essences to dishes that will awaken and satisfy the most refined palate. As the cooking progresses, the kitchen fills with aromas that speak of comfort, abundance, and the skilled transformation of simple ingredients into something approaching art. The scents drift through the villa's corridors and chambers, announcing to all within that the day's final pleasure is being prepared with the care and attention that make ordinary meals into celebrations of life's continuing abundance. In the modest home where Claudia Maxima attends her own family's evening preparations, similar rituals unfold on a scale appropriate to more limited means, but no less rich in love and attention to the details that make domestic life beautiful rather than merely functional. Her kitchen, smaller than that of Marcus's villa, but arranged with the efficiency that comes from years of managing a household where every resource must be used wisely, becomes the center activity as the family prepares for the evening meal that will bring them together after the day's separate activities. Julia and Quintus, refreshed by their afternoon rest and eager to participate in the evening's preparations, assist their mother with the enthusiasm that children bring to activities that make them feel useful and important. Julia's small hands prove surprisingly capable at tasks requiring delicate touch, arranging olives and patterns on serving dishes, breaking bread into portions that can be easily shared, and setting out the simple pottery cups and plates that will hold the family's meal. Her movements show increasing coordination and growing pride in her ability to contribute meaningfully to the household's functioning. Quintus, younger but no less eager to help, takes responsibility for tasks suited to his size and abilities, carrying water from the well in vessels small enough for his arms to manage, gathering herbs from the small garden plot that provides a family with fresh seasonings, and arranging cushions around the low table where the family will recline together for their evening meal. His earnest concentration and obvious pride in being trusted with important duties demonstrate the natural human desire to contribute to the welfare of those we love. Claudia watches her children's efforts with the patient attention of a mother who understands that teaching life skills requires allowing mistakes while providing gentle guidance toward improvement. Her corrections, when necessary, come in the form of suggestions rather than criticisms, encouraging the children's natural desire to please while helping them develop a competence that will serve them throughout their lives. The love that motivates her teaching creates an atmosphere where learning becomes pleasure rather than burden, where children develop skills naturally through participation in meaningful activities rather than through forced instruction divorced from practical application. The family's evening meal, while simpler than that being prepared in Marcus's villa, reflects the same understanding that food shared in love creates bonds that strengthen families and communities. Claudia's preparations include a hearty soup made from lentils, onions, and herbs that have simmered slowly throughout the afternoon, their flavors melding into a satisfying whole that will provide both nourishment and comfort. Fresh cheese, made from milk purchased at morning from farmers who drive their goats into the city before dawn, offers protein and the pleasure foods consumed at the peak of their freshness. Bread from Lucius's bakery, purchased while still warm from the ovens, will provide the foundation for a meal that satisfies hunger while creating the shared experience that makes families strong. As evening approaches and the cooking nears completion, the various households of Pompeii prepare to gather around tables that represent far more than mere furniture. They serve as altars where the daily sacrifice of shared sustenance creates and maintains the bonds that make human community possible. The foods being prepared with such care and attention represent not just the satisfaction of physical needs, but the expression of love made tangible. The transformation of simple ingredients into memories that will last far beyond the meal itself. Throughout the city, similar preparations unfold as families and households prepare for the evening meal that will mark the transition from day's activities to night's rest. In wealthy villas and modest homes alike, the rituals of preparation create anticipation for the pleasures of shared food and conversation, the opportunity to reconnect with loved ones after the day's separate pursuits, and the satisfaction that comes from gathering around tables laden with the fruits of honest labor and careful stewardship. The bakers, including Lucius, begin to prepare their evening offerings, fresh bread and simple pastries that will grace tables throughout the city. The fishmongers display their remaining catch, now offer at reduced prices to ensure that nothing goes to waste in the Mediterranean heat. Market gardeners arrange their final vegetables of the day, hoping to sell the last of their produce before returning to farms outside the city walls. As shadows begin to lengthen and the air starts to carry the first hints of evening's cooling breeze, Pompeii prepares for the gentle transition from day to night, from activity to rest, from individual pursuits to the shared pleasures that make community life rich and meaningful. The evening preparations, undertaken with love and attention throughout the city, create the foundation for hours of contentment and connection that will prepare citizens for another night of peaceful rest and dreams of tomorrow's continuing abundance. The simple acts of cooking and preparation, repeated in countless kitchens throughout the city, represent one of humanity's most fundamental expressions of care and love. The transformation of raw ingredients into nourishment that sustains not just the body but the spirit, creating through the sharing of meals the bonds that make families strong and communities endure. In these evening preparations, undertaken with patience and attention to detail, the citizens of Pompeii demonstrate their understanding that true civilization lies not in grand monuments or spectacular entertainments, but in the daily attention to the simple acts of care that make ordinary life extraordinary. Part 7. The Twilight Social Hour. As the sun begins its graceful descent toward the distant mountains that cradle the Bay of Naples, painting the western sky in watercolor washes of coral and gold that seem to soften every harsh edge and transform the familiar streets of Pompeii into something approaching poetry, the city undergoes its most beautiful daily transformation. The oppressive heat of afternoon gives way to gentle warmth that kisses the skin like a loving caress, while the light itself takes on that magical quality that photographers and painters would one day spend lifetimes trying to capture, the golden hour that makes everything it touches appear blessed and eternal. This is the time when Pompeii truly comes alive as a community, when the private satisfactions of individual households give way to the shared pleasures of neighborly communion. From doorways and courtyards throughout the city, citizens emerge with the leisurely pace of people who understand that the day's urgent business has been completed and that what remains is the far more important work of maintaining the social bonds that transform a collection of individual dwellings into a living, breathing community where people know each other's names, share each other's concerns, and find in daily interaction the human connection that makes life rich and meaningful. The streets themselves seem to welcome this evening renaissance, their volcanic stone surfaces releasing the accumulated warmth of the day in gentle exhalations that create subtle air currents carrying the mingled fragrances of cooking food, blooming flowers, and the indefinable but unmistakable scent of human habitation. Not the crowded, overwhelming odor of cities too large for their infrastructure, but the comfortable, familiar smell of a community that has found the perfect balance between density and space, between privacy and connection. Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, having completed his evening preparations and donned the toga that marks him as a citizen of substance and respectability, steps from his villa into the cooling air with the satisfied contentment of a man whose day has been both productive and pleasant. The transition from the private sphere of domestic life to the public realm of community interaction represents one of the daily pleasures that Roman culture has elevated to an art form, the understanding that human beings require both solitude and society, both the sanctuary of family life and the stimulation of broader social engagement. His destination is a corner where the Via dell'Abbondanza intersects with a narrow street that leads to his villa. A location has become, through years of custom and mutual agreement, an informal gathering place for the neighborhood's merchants and property owners. The spot is marked by a small shrine dedicated to the Lares Compitales, the gods who protect crossroads and watch over the interactions between neighbors. Fresh flowers placed that morning by devout citizens still release their fragrance into the evening air, while oil lamps beginning to flicker to life in the shrine's niches create pools of warm light that invite conversation and communion. Here, Marcus finds his usual companions already assembled in the comfortable configuration that friendship and habit have established over many pleasant evenings. Gaius Appius Maximus, a wine merchant whose family vineyard produces some of the region's most sought-after vintages, sits on the stone bench that some long-forgotten benefactor installed for the comfort of evening gatherings. His weathered face, marked by years of sun and wind during harvest seasons, bears the deep contentment of a man who has found prosperity through honest labor and wise stewardship of the land that his grandfather first planted with vines. Beside him, Marcus Flavius Niger, a dealer in fine pottery whose shop near the Forum displays ceramics from across the known world, gestures expressively as he shares the day's news and observations. His hands, stained with the clay dust that no amount of washing can completely remove, speak of a craftsman's direct involvement in his trade, while his animated manner of speaking reveals a natural enthusiasm of someone who finds genuine pleasure in the business of buying, selling, and connecting artisans with customers who appreciate fine workmanship. The conversation that flows among these men represents one of the great pleasures of civilized life, the opportunity to share thoughts and experiences with companions who possess the wisdom that comes from years of similar challenges and achievements. Their discussion tonight ranges from practical matters of trade and commerce to more philosophical considerations about the nature of prosperity and the responsibilities that come with success, creating a dialogue that is both intellectually stimulating and deeply satisfying on an emotional level. The harvest promises to be exceptional this year, Gaius reports, his voice carrying the cautious optimism of someone who knows that agriculture always remains subject to forces beyond human control. The vines have never looked healthier, and if the weather holds favorable for another month, we'll have grapes worthy of the gods themselves. His words reflect not boastfulness, but the genuine pride of a man whose life's work involves transforming the gift of earth and climate into something that brings pleasure to others while supporting his family and community. Marcus Aurelius nods with understanding, recognizing in his friend's satisfaction the same contentment he feels when a trading venture succeeds beyond expectations, or when a difficult negotiation concludes with mutual benefit for all parties involved. "And what of your Gallic pottery, Marcus Flavius?" he inquires, turning to include the third member of their informal circle. "Has the new shipment from Ladunum arrived safely?" The pottery merchant's face brightens with the enthusiasm that always accompanies discussion of his favorite pieces. "Arrived yesterday, and such craftsmanship you've never seen. The potters there discovered techniques that create glazes of the most remarkable blue, deep as the sea at midday, yet clear as mountain springs. I've already had inquiries from customers in Rome who heard rumors of the shipment's quality." His description carries the appreciation of someone who understands that true commerce involves more than mere buying and selling. It requires the recognition of beauty and the ability to connect artists with patrons who can appreciate their skills. As the men continue their conversation, the scene around them fills with similar groups forming throughout the neighborhood. Women emerge in their homes with the graceful bearing that Roman culture expects of respectable matrons, gathering in smaller clusters near doorways and fountains where they can supervise children's play while engaging in the gentle social interaction that maintains the networks of friendship and mutual support essential to community life. Their conversations, while different in focus from those of the men, serve the same fundamental purpose: creating and maintaining the social bonds that transform individual families into a cohesive community capable of mutual aid and shared celebration. Livia appears in the doorway of the villa, her evening stola of deep green silk making her a figure of elegant beauty in the golden light. She pauses there, not to join the men's conversation, social custom dictating that such gatherings remain primarily masculine spaces, but to enjoy the pleasant sight of her husband engaged in the friendly discourse that represents one of the great pleasures of their comfortable life. Her presence adds to the evening's contentment without disrupting the natural flow of masculine conversation, creating the perfect balance between family life and social engagement that marks a harmonious household. Near the neighborhood fountain, where the constant splash of fresh water provides both practical necessity and soothing background music for evening gatherings, a group of women has assembled around Claudia Maxima, whose modest dress and careful demeanor mark her as a respectable wife and mother deserving of the community's regard. The fountain itself serves as more than merely a source of water. It functions as an informal social center where news is exchanged, friendships are maintained, and the countless small interactions that bind communities together take place in an atmosphere of mutual respect and shared concern for the common welfare. The women's conversation tonight centers on the practical matters that occupy much of their attention: children's health and education, household management, the seasonal rhythms that govern domestic life, and the social obligations that maintain harmony within the community. Their discourse, while perhaps lacking the philosophical scope of the men's discussions, possesses its own wisdom and importance, addressing the fundamental concerns that make family life stable and nurturing. Young Julia grows more accomplished each day, observes Antonia, the baker's wife whose own children have reached adulthood and whose perspective on child-rearing carries the authority of successful experience. Her deportment yesterday at the market showed excellent training, respectful to her elders, kind to younger children, and attentive to her mother's guidance. You should be proud, Claudia. The compliment brings genuine pleasure to Claudia's face, reflecting the deep satisfaction that comes from recognition that one's efforts as a parent are succeeding in their essential purpose, raising children who will become contributing members of their community while bringing honor to their family name. She is eager to learn and quick to understand. Claudia responds with a modesty appropriate to a mother discussing her children's virtues. Though young Quintus tests my patience daily with his boundless energy and endless questions. The laughter that greets this observation reflects the universal experience of mothers dealing with curious, active children, creating an immediate bond of shared understanding that transcends differences in economic circumstances or social position. These moments of recognition and mutual support represent one of the great strengths of community life. The understanding that certain experiences are universal and that wisdom gained through personal trial can be shared for benefit of all. As the evening progresses and the light continues its gradual transformation from gold to amber to the first hints of purple that announce night's approach, children begin to appear in the spaces between adult conversation groups, their play taking on a special quality that comes when bedtime approaches but has not yet arrived. Their games, less boisterous than the morning's adventures, but no less engaging, reflect the natural rhythm of childhood energy that peaks during cooler hours and gradually subsides as darkness approaches. Julia and Quintus emerge from their courtyard to join other neighborhood children in games of tag and hide-and-seek that utilize the familiar geography of their shared environment, doorways and corners that provide perfect hiding places, stone steps that serve as basis for complex chasing games, and the gentle slopes of the street that add challenge and excitement to running games that help burn off the day's accumulated energy while building the social bonds that will last throughout their lives. The children's laughter, mixing with the gentle murmur of adult conversation and the constant musical background of the fountain splash, creates a symphony of community life that speaks to the fundamental human need for connection and belonging. Their play serves not merely as entertainment, but as education in the social skills that will serve them throughout their lives. Cooperation, fair play, leadership, and the ability to resolve conflicts through negotiation rather than force. Lucius Cornelius Maximus, having completed the day's baking and closed the shop, joins the evening social gathering with the satisfied weariness of someone whose work begins before dawn, but whose contribution to community life is both essential and deeply appreciated. His presence adds another dimension to the neighborhood's evening assembly, representing the skilled craftsman whose labor sustains the community's daily needs, while their participation in social life helps maintain the bonds that make such service a pleasure rather than merely a burden. The baker's conversation with his neighbors reflects the mutual respect that exists between those who work with their hands and those whose prosperity comes from trade and investment. Roman society, despite its formal hierarchies and legal distinctions, recognizes in daily practice the essential dignity of honest labor and the value of skills that serve genuine human needs. Lucius's expertise in his craft earns him the same respectful attention that Marcus receives when discussing trading opportunities, or Gaius commands when sharing insights about viticulture. The grain shipment from Egypt arrived in excellent condition. Lucius reports to those interested in such matters. The quality promises bread worthy of the finest tables, and the quantity should carry us comfortably through the coming season. His words reflect not just professional satisfaction, but the deeper contentment that comes from knowing that his community will be well fed through his efforts and expertise. As full darkness begins to approach and oil lamps flicker to life in windows throughout the neighborhood, creating pools of warm light that push back the gathering shadows, the evening social hour gradually winds toward its natural conclusion. The transition occurs without formal announcement or abrupt departure. Instead, conversations naturally find their resting points. Children are called gently home by parents mindful of approaching bedtime, and the various groups that have formed begin to dissolve as individuals prepare for the night's final rituals of family life and rest. The beauty of this daily social hour lies not in any single conversation or interaction, but in the cumulative effect of countless small moments of human connection that weave together to create the social fabric that makes community life rich and meaningful. Each evening's gathering strengthens the bonds between neighbors, creates opportunities for mutual support and assistance, and maintains the networks of friendship and respect that allow a collection of individual households to function as a genuine community, where people care about each other's welfare and find in daily interaction a human connection that makes life beautiful rather than merely functional. As Marcus makes his way back to his villa, exchanging final pleasantries with neighbors and pausing to appreciate the way lamplight creates golden rectangles in doorways and windows throughout his neighborhood, he carries with him the deep satisfaction that comes from being part of something larger than himself, a community where individual prosperity serves the common good and where daily life is enriched by the countless small kindnesses and considerations that neighbors show each other. Tonight, as every night, the twilight social hour has served its essential purpose, maintaining the human connections that make Pompeii not just a place where people happen to live, but a true community where citizens know each other, care about each other, and find in shared life the meaning and purpose that make existence joyful rather than merely tolerable. Part 8. The Sacred Evening Rituals. As darkness begins to claim the ancient streets of Pompeii and the final merchants close their shutters with a soft thud of wood against stone, a profound transformation settles over the city like a gentle benediction. The bustling energy of commerce and social interaction gives way to something deeper and more timeless. The sacred hour when families throughout the Roman world turn their hearts toward the divine forces that govern their daily lives and seek blessing for the vulnerable hours of sleep that lie ahead. In windows across the city, oil lamps begin to flicker to life, their warm golden flames creating countless points of light that transform Pompeii into a constellation of domestic devotion, each household shrine serving as an altar where mortal concerns meet eternal protection. The evening rituals that now commence represent far more than mere religious obligation. They embody the Roman understanding that prosperity and security flow from proper relationship with the spiritual realm, that human effort alone, however skillful and determined, cannot ensure continuation of the blessings that make life not merely endurable, but genuinely joyful. These nightly observances connect each family to traditions stretching back through generations, creating an unbroken chain of devotion that links present contentment to ancestral wisdom and future hope. In the villa of Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, where the day's successful business activities have concluded and the evening meal has satisfied both body and social bonds, the transition to sacred time occurs with the natural rhythm of a household where spiritual observance has never been separated from daily living. The atrium, which served throughout the day as a center of domestic activity, now assumes its most important function as a sacred space where divine and human realms intersect through the ancient rituals of household worship. The lararium, that most sacred feature of any Roman home, glows softly in the light of carefully positioned oil lamps whose flames seem to breathe life into the painted figures of the household gods. The Laras, those benevolent spirits who protect the family's welfare and prosperity, appear almost to dance in the flickering light, their painted robes seeming to move as shadows shift across the shrine's decorated surface. Between them stands a genius of the paterfamilias, Marcus's own divine double, depicted as an eternally youthful figure pouring libations from a shallow bowl, a daily reminder that mortal men serve as temporary guardians of family traditions that transcend individual lifespans. Marcus approaches the shrine with movements that carry the weight of profound reverence earned through years of faithful observance. His day clothes have been replaced by a simple white tunic that symbolizes the purity of heart appropriate to divine communion, while his hands, cleansed with special care, carry the evening's offerings: wine drawn from the family's finest vintage, honey cakes formed by Claudia Prima's skilled fingers into shapes that honor the gods through their beauty, and precious incense whose aromatic smoke will carry the household's prayers toward the divine realm where protection and blessing originate. The wine he pours comes from grapes that grew on the fertile slopes of Vesuvius, their sweetness concentrated through patient aging in clay amphorae buried deep in the villa's cool cellars. As the dark liquid spreads across the altar's marble surface, creating patterns that seem to hold special meaning in the lamplight's golden glow, Marcus offers words of gratitude that acknowledge not human achievement alone, but divine partnership in earthly success. Sacred Lauras, guardians of our threshold and protectors of our prosperity, accept these offerings from grateful hearts. You have watched over our trading ventures and brought our ships safely home from distant ports. You have blessed our household with harmony and our family with health. His prayers continue with the measured cadence of formal Latin, yet every word carries personal meaning earned through daily experience of divine favor. He acknowledges the successful conclusion of negotiations that have expanded his trading network, expresses gratitude for continued health of family members both present and distant, and requests continued protection to the night's vulnerable hours when sleep renders mortals helpless against the forces of darkness and chaos that constantly threaten the ordered world of Roman civilization. Livia joins her husband before the sacred shrine with movements that reflect 20 years of shared devotional practice. Her evening stola, deep blue silk embroidered with silver threads that catch and scatter lamplight, marks this hour as special, set apart from the day's domestic activities. Her presence transforms individual prayer into family worship, creating spiritual bonds that strengthen the marriage partnership while connecting both husband and wife to the eternal principles that make human love sacred rather than merely biological. Together, they represent a Roman ideal of partnership in all aspects of life: economic, social, and spiritual. Livia's prayers, offered in the clear, musical voice that first captured Marcus's heart decades ago, focus on concerns that occupy much of her attention: gratitude for the successful management of household affairs, thanksgiving for the health and prosperity of their daughter settled comfortably in Rome with her senator husband, and requests for continued wisdom in guiding the domestic staff whose loyalty and competence make their comfortable life possible. Divine protectors, she prays, her hands raised in the ancient gesture of supplication. You have blessed our home with peace and our family with love. Grant that our daughter may find joy in her marriage and success in her new social position. Watch over the servants who serve us faithfully, and grant that our household may continue to flourish under your benevolent care. The household slaves, assembled respectfully in the atrium's shadows, participate in the evening devotions not as mere observers, but as integral members of the family's spiritual community. Roman household religion at its most enlightened recognizes the essential humanity of all who contribute to domestic prosperity, finding in shared reverence for divine power a bond that transcends legal definitions of status and creates genuine fellowship based on common spiritual needs and mutual dependence upon divine favor. Gaius, the elderly steward whose gray hair and dignified bearing reflect decades of faithful service, leads the household staff in their own prayers of gratitude. His words, though briefer than those of his master, carry equal sincerity. Gods of this household, you have granted us places of honor and responsibility in a home where kindness prevails over harshness. Accept our thanks for daily bread and peaceful rest, and grant that we may continue to serve with loyalty and skill. The younger slaves, including Titus, who serves as Marcus's personal attendant, and the kitchen maids who assist Claudia Prima in her culinary arts, bow their heads in silent prayer, their devotion reflecting not servile fear, but genuine gratitude for positions that provide security and opportunity for advancement within a household where merit receives recognition and faithful service earns reward. Their participation in the family's spiritual observances creates bonds of mutual respect that make service a pleasure rather than a burden. As the formal prayers conclude and the incense burns down to fragrant ash, the evening ritual expands to include the countless smaller observances that mark the gradual transition from conscious activity to sleep's healing embrace. Oil lamps are trimmed and positioned to burn safely through the night, providing not just practical illumination, but symbolic protection against the forces of darkness that ancient wisdom recognizes as threats to both physical safety and spiritual peace. In the more modest household, where Claudia Maxima has spent her day in patient care of family and domestic responsibilities, the evening devotions carry the same essential meaning while adapted to simpler circumstances. Her lararium, though smaller than that in Marcus's villa, receives the same careful attention and heartfelt reverence, demonstrating that divine favor responds to sincere devotion rather than expensive ceremony. Claudia gathers her children before the family shrine with the gentle authority of a mother who understands that spiritual education represents one of her most crucial responsibilities. Julia and Quintus, bathed and dressed in clean sleeping tunics that mark the transition from day's activities to night's sacred observances, approach the ritual with natural reverence that reflects careful parental guidance rather than imposed solemnity. "Come, my darlings," Claudia says softly, her voice carrying the warmth that makes religious instruction a source of comfort rather than anxiety. "Let us thank the gods for another day of happiness and ask their protection while we sleep." Her approach to family worship emphasizes gratitude and trust rather than fear and supplication, teaching her children to understand divine power as loving protection rather than arbitrary force requiring fearful placation. 8-year-old Julia participates with growing understanding of the spiritual concepts underlying the familiar rituals. Her clear voice joins her mother's in prayers learned through patient repetition, while her small hands fold naturally in gestures of reverence. Her questions about the meaning of various observances receive thoughtful answers that gradually build her understanding of the invisible world of divine power that surrounds and protects mortal life. "Mama," she asks with characteristic directness, "why do we pour wine for the gods if they don't drink it like we do?" The question reflects a natural curiosity of a developing mind, encountering concepts that transcend physical experience. Claudia's response demonstrates the wisdom that makes religious teaching effective. The gods don't need our wine, dear one, but giving our best things shows them that we're grateful for their gifts and that we remember they take care of us. When we share what we have, it makes our hearts ready to receive their blessings. 5-year-old Quintus listens with the intense concentration of a child still learning to distinguish between a magical world of imagination and the sacred realm of religious truth. His participation in the family prayers, though sometimes confused and always enthusiastic, reflects the natural spiritual openness of childhood that careful nurturing can develop into mature faith and understanding. The family's evening prayers acknowledge the specific concerns of their more modest circumstances, while maintaining the same fundamental understanding that prosperity, however humble, represents divine favor requiring grateful recognition. Claudia offers thanks for health that has allowed the family to enjoy the day's simple pleasures, for food sufficient to satisfy hunger, for shelter that provides safety and comfort, and for the love that binds them together in mutual support and shared joy. Her requests for continued blessing carry the humble recognition that their security depends upon forces beyond human control. Gracious protectors, grant that tomorrow may bring another day of health and happiness. Keep our family safe through the night's darkness, and help us to deserve the blessings you so generously provide. Her prayers reflect not presumption of divine favor, but grateful appreciation for gifts that might easily be withdrawn if proper reverence were not maintained. Throughout Pompeii, similar scenes unfold as families across all levels of society participate in evening devotions that reflect common spiritual needs despite differences in wealth, social position, and domestic circumstances. In workshops and shops, in grand villas and modest apartments, in every space where Roman families have established their homes, the ancient rituals proceed with variations in form but unity in purpose, connecting human lives to divine protection and finding in spiritual observance the security that makes peaceful rest possible. Above his bakery, Lucius Cornelius Maximus conducts his solitary evening prayers with reverence equal to any family's collective worship. His simple shrine, decorated with images of Vesta, goddess of hearth and home, and Mercury, patron of craftsmen and commerce, receives offerings appropriate to his circumstances. Fresh bread representing the fruits of his labor, clear water symbolizing purity of intention, and a small portion of salt, precious enough to serve as currency in earlier times. The baker's prayers carry special poignancy as he acknowledges both the physical strength that enables his demanding work and the ancestral knowledge that guides his daily transformation of grain into nourishment. Divine Vesta, he prays, his weathered hand steady as he places bread upon the altar, you have blessed me with skills that serve my community's needs. Grant that my hands may remain strong and my knowledge sure, that I may continue to provide the daily bread that sustains my neighbors' lives. His gratitude extends beyond personal prosperity to encompass his role in the larger community. May tomorrow's bread bring satisfaction to those who purchase it, nourishment to those who consume it, and honest profit that allows me to maintain this workshop where ancient skills continue to serve modern needs. His prayers reflect understanding that individual success serves purposes larger than self-interest, creating connections between personal achievement and community welfare that make prosperity meaningful rather than merely material. As the evening devotions conclude throughout Pompeii and families begin their final preparations for sleep, the accumulated prayers of thousands of citizens create an invisible network of spiritual protection over the city. These nightly observances, repeated with patient consistency through seasons and years, weave individual households into a larger spiritual community, united by common recognition of dependence upon divine favor and shared gratitude for the peace and prosperity that bless their collective life. The oil lamps that burn through the night in household shrines throughout the city serve as beacons of continuing devotion, their flames maintain the connection between human lives and divine purposes, while citizens surrender consciousness to sleep's restorative power. In this perfect integration of sacred and secular concerns, the evening rituals demonstrate Roman wisdom at its finest, finding in ordinary domestic life the materials for extraordinary spiritual communion that transforms mere existence into meaningful participation in eternal order that governs all creation. Part 9. The city settles into night's embrace. As the sacred evening rituals conclude and the last whispered prayers fade into the gentle darkness that has settled over Pompeii like a protective blanket woven from starlight and contentment, the ancient city begins its most beautiful transformation of all. The transition from the sacred hour of family devotions to the deep peace of approaching sleep occurs with the natural rhythm of tides or seasons, each household gradually surrendering the day's activities to embrace the restorative mystery of night. Throughout the volcanic stone streets, oil lamps flicker behind shuttered windows like earthbound stars, creating a warm constellation that mirrors the celestial canopy above while transforming the familiar geography of daily life into something approaching poetry. The sounds that now define Pompeii's nighttime characters speak of profound security and deep contentment. The soft footfalls of night watchmen beginning their protective rounds, the gentle splash of fountains whose flow continues unchanged through darkness and light, the distant murmur of voices from households where final conversations mark the day's end, and the barely audible whisper of evening breezes carrying the mingled fragrances of jasmine, roses, and the sea that lies beyond the city's walls. These sounds weave together to create a nocturnal symphony that speaks to the fundamental safety and stability that make peaceful rest possible in a world where communities live in harmony with both natural rhythms and social order. The watchmen who now emerge in their quarters to begin their nightly vigil represent one of Roman civilization's great achievements, the understanding that security requires not just walls and weapons, but constant vigilance exercised by citizens whose dedication to community welfare transcends personal comfort and convenience. These men, selected for their reliability and courage, move through Pompeii streets with practiced quiet, their sandal feet knowing every stone and corner, their trained eyes alert for any sign of disorder or distress that might disturb the city's peaceful rest. Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, the senior watchman whose 20 years of faithful service have earned him the respect of citizens throughout his patrol area, begins his rounds at the Forum, where day's business has given way to night's profound stillness. The great columns that frame the Civic Center cast deep shadows in the moonlight, creating pools of darkness balanced by areas where starlight illuminates the marble surfaces with an ethereal glow that transforms a familiar public space into something magical and dreamlike. His route, established through years of careful observation and refined by experience with the city's patterns of life and activity, takes him through the commercial districts where shuttered shops rest secure behind heavy wooden doors and iron locks, past the residential areas where family homes hold sleeping citizens in protective embrace, and along the quieter streets where craftsmen's workshops stand ready for tomorrow's renewed activity. Each familiar landmark brings satisfaction. Another day concluded without serious incident, another night beginning under conditions of security and peace. The watchman's keen eyes, adapted through long practice to see clearly in darkness, observe details invisible to casual observers. The reassuring glow of oil lamps burning steadily in household shrines, the properly secured doors and shutters that indicate citizens have taken appropriate precautions for night's protection, and the general atmosphere of contentment and security that marks a community where people trust their neighbors and rely upon established institutions for their safety and welfare. As Marcus Aemilius moves through the Via dell'Abbondanza, the main thoroughfare that connects the city's eastern and western gates, his practiced ear distinguishes between the normal sounds of domestic life settling into rest and any unusual noise that might indicate trouble requiring intervention. Tonight, as most nights, the sounds speak only of families concluding their daily routines with the unhurried grace of people who feel secure in their homes and confident in their community's stability. From behind shuttered windows comes the soft murmur of parents settling children into bed with lullabies and gentle words of comfort. The quiet conversation of married couples sharing final thoughts about the day's events and tomorrow's plans, and the barely audible sounds of household staff completing their final duties before seeking their own rest. These domestic sounds, filtered through walls and distance into a gentle background chorus, create an atmosphere of profound peace that makes the watchman's protective duties seem less like work and more like participation in the larger harmony that defines civilized community life. In the villa of Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, where the evening's religious observances have concluded and the household prepares for sleep, the transition to night's embrace occurs with rituals as meaningful as those that mark the day's beginning. The oil lamps that illuminated the family's prayers now burn lower. Their flames adjusted provide just enough light to ensure safe movement through the villa's corridors, while conserving precious oil for the hours when complete darkness will bring vulnerability and unease. Marcus and Livia retire to their private chamber, where the familiar comforts of married life await. The bed, whose soft mattress and fine linens represent not just physical comfort, but the security that comes from 20 years of shared nights and mutual protection. The small shrine where personal protective deities watch over their most intimate hours. And the window that opens onto the garden where night-blooming jasmine releases its intoxicating fragrance into air cooled by gentle breezes from the distant sea. Their conversation, as they prepare for sleep, carries the intimate quality that distinguishes the private discourse of married couples from all other human communication. They speak quietly of the day's small satisfactions and minor concerns, sharing observations about business prospects and family news, discussing the household staff's welfare, and their daughter's recent letters from Rome. These gentle exchanges, unremarkable in their specific content but profound in their cumulative effect, strengthen the bonds that make marriage not just a social institution, but a source of deep personal satisfaction and mutual support. The new trading contract with the Gallic merchants should prove quite profitable, Marcus observes, his voice carrying the satisfaction of successful negotiation while remaining modest about achievements that benefit not just his family, but the broader community that depends upon commerce for prosperity and connection to the wider world. Livia responds with interest and insight, her questions revealing understanding of business principles and concern for the welfare of those whose livelihoods depend upon the success of such ventures. Will this arrangement provide work for additional dock workers? I know several families whose men seek steady employment during the shipping season. Her concern reflects the Roman understanding that individual prosperity serves larger social purposes, and that successful citizens have obligations to consider their community's welfare in making business decisions. Their conversation gradually winds down as the natural drowsiness that follows a well-lived day begins to claim their attention. The familiar rituals of preparing for sleep, washing with cool water from clay basins, changing into sleeping garments of soft linen, and adjusting the oil lamp's flame to provide just enough light for safety without disturbing rest, proceed with the comfortable efficiency of long-established habit that makes bedtime pleasant rather than merely necessary. In their garden, visible through the open window of their chamber, the night reveals beauties invisible during daylight hours. Night, blooming Sirius, unfolds its spectacular white flowers that will close again with dawn's arrival, offering its brief magnificence only to those who appreciate night's special gifts. The fountain's gentle splash, which provided pleasant background music throughout the day, now assumes greater prominence in the quieter soundscape of evening, its liquid voice joining with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant music of nocturnal insects to create a natural lullaby that eases the transition from consciousness to dreams. Throughout Pompeii's residential districts, similar scenes unfold as families conclude their daily routines and surrender to sleep's healing embrace. In the modest home where Claudia Maxima has tucked her children into their beds with stories and gentle songs, the night brings special tenderness as maternal love provides the ultimate security that makes childhood's peaceful rest possible even in a world where dangers exist beyond the protective walls of home and family. Julia, settled into her small bed with her treasured doll and a soft blanket woven from the finest wool, drifts towards sleep with a profound contentment that comes from days filled with love, learning, and innocent pleasures. Her final conscious thoughts, as drowsiness claims her young mind, center on tomorrow's anticipated joys. Games to play with her brother, stories to hear from her mother, and the countless small adventures that make each day an exciting exploration of an expanding world filled with wonder and possibility. Beside her, 5-year-old Quintus has already surrendered to sleep with the complete abandon that characterizes healthy childhood. His sturdy little body relaxed in total trust that the adults who love him will protect him through the night's vulnerable hours. His dreams, when they come, will be filled with the imagery of his daytime play. Brave gladiators and wise emperors, magical creatures and heroic adventures, all processed through the sleeping mind's mysterious alchemy that transforms daily experience into fantastical narratives that entertain and educate even during rest. Claudia herself, having completed the final maternal duties that ensure her children's comfort and security, finds her own rest and satisfaction that comes from knowing her family is safe, healthy, and happy. Her prayers, offered silently as she settles into her own bed, express gratitude for another day of domestic harmony and request for continued blessing on the small household that represents her heart's deepest investment and greatest achievement. Above his bakery, Lucius Cornelius Maximus experiences a profound weariness that follows honest labor performed with skill and dedication. His powerful body, which rose before dawn to begin the day's bread-making and worked steadily through the morning's intense activity, now claims the rest it has earned through hours of service to his community's daily needs. His simple sleeping quarters, furnished with only essential comfort but blessed by the satisfaction that comes from meaningful work, provide exactly the refuge his tired muscles and peaceful mind require. The baker's final conscious thoughts, as sleep overtakes him, center on tomorrow's bread and the customers whose satisfaction depends upon his skill and dedication. His dreams, when they come, will be filled with the imagery of his beloved craft. Flour falling like snow through ancient mills, dough rising through mysterious fermentation, and golden loaves emerging from ovens heated to perfect temperature through knowledge passed down through generations of skilled practitioners. In the grander villas throughout Pompeii's more prosperous districts, the preparations for sleep assume more elaborate forms while maintaining the same essential purpose, creating conditions conducive to rest that will restore body and spirit for tomorrow's activities. Additional oil lamps burn in household shrines where more numerous deities receive continued attention. Servants make final rounds to ensure all security measures are properly implemented, and families conduct more complex bedtime rituals that reflect their enhanced obligations to community leadership and social responsibility. Yet beneath these surface differences lies the same fundamental human need for safety, comfort, and the psychological security that comes from knowing one is surrounded by the love and protection of family members and trusted servants whose loyalty and competence make peaceful rest possible. Whether in grand villa or modest apartment, whether served by numerous slaves or relying upon personal effort, all citizens share the basic requirement for conditions that make sleep restorative rather than merely inactive. The city's public spaces, now largely empty to human activity, assume their own nocturnal character as moonlight and starlight transform familiar daylight geography into something mysterious and beautiful. The Forum, where citizens gathered during the day to conduct business and engage in political discussions, now stand silent except for the soft footfalls of night watchmen, whose presence ensures that tomorrow's activities can proceed in spaces kept secure through the night's protective hours. The great amphitheater outside the city walls, where gladiatorial contests and wild animal hunts provide spectacular entertainment for citizens who appreciate the courage and skill of professional fighters, rests empty under the star-filled sky, while sand that absorbed the day's training activities awaits tomorrow's renewed practice sessions. The gladiators themselves sleep in their barracks beneath the arena floor, their dreams filled with visions of combat and victory, their powerful bodies recovering from the day's intense physical preparation for contests that test not just strength and skill, but character and courage. Public fountains continue their constant service, providing fresh mountain water to any citizen who might require it during the night hours, while maintaining the steady musical background that helps define Pompeii's acoustic character. The water's flow, unchanged by darkness or light, represents one of Roman engineering's greatest achievements: the creation of infrastructure that serves human needs with reliability and efficiency that makes civilized life possible and comfortable. As the night deepens and the last conversations fade into silence, as the final oil lamps are trimmed and adjusted for safe burning to the dark hours, as the last children surrender to sleep's protective embrace, and the last adults complete their evening preparations, Pompeii settles into profound peace that marks a community where citizens feel secure in their homes, confident in their institutions, and grateful for the prosperity and harmony that make their shared life not just tolerable but genuinely joyful. The city breathes now with the slow, regular rhythm of collective sleep. Thousands of citizens lost in dreams that process the day's experiences while preparing minds and spirits for tomorrow's opportunities and challenges. In this moment of perfect stillness, with Mount Vesuvius standing sentinel in the moonlight and the Mediterranean stars maintaining their eternal vigil, Pompeii embodies a Roman ideal of civilized community life, where individual prosperity serves the common good and where daily existence achieves a balance between work and rest, between private satisfaction and social responsibility, that makes human life both meaningful and beautiful. Part 10. Sleep comes to the eternal city. In the deepest hours of night, when the moon has traveled its ancient path across the star-filled Mediterranean sky and now casts its gentle silver light upon the sleeping city of Pompeii, a profound tranquility settles over every street, every home, every heart. The city breathes now with the slow, collective rhythm of thousands of souls lost in the healing embrace of sleep. Merchants and bakers, mothers and children, slaves and citizens, all united in the universal human need for rest that restores both body and spirit. This is the hour when Pompeii most perfectly embodies the Roman ideal of civilized life, a community where individual dreams merge into collective peace, where private contentment serves a greater harmony, and where the simple act of peaceful sleep becomes a testament to the security and prosperity that generations of wise governance and mutual cooperation have created. The night watchmen, those faithful guardians whose vigilance makes this collective rest possible, move through the city's arteries with practiced quiet, their trained eyes scanning familiar territories, while their hearts carry the deep satisfaction that comes from protecting something genuinely precious. Marcus Aemilius Scaurus, completing the middle portion of his nightly rounds, pauses at the intersection where 4 residential streets converge around a small fountain dedicated to Neptune, god of waters. The fountain's gentle music, unchanged by the transition from day to night, provides a constant heartbeat for this section of the city, its liquid voice joining with the soft whisper of evening breezes to create a natural lullaby that enhances rather than disturbs the profound quiet that has settled over the sleeping households. From this vantage point, the watchman can observe the subtle signs that indicate a community at peace with itself and confident in its security. Oil lamps burn steadily behind shuttered windows, their warm glow speaking of families that maintain proper vigil while embracing sleep's restoration. No unusual shadows move through garden courtyards, no unexpected sounds disturb the night's gentle chorus. No signs of distress or disorder trouble the peaceful progression of hours that carry the city from today's satisfaction toward tomorrow's promised opportunities. The homes that surround this quiet intersection represent the full spectrum of Pompeii's social fabric, From modest dwellings where craftsmen's families enjoy simple comfort earned through honest labor, to more elaborate residences where successful merchants create prosperity that benefits not just their own households, but the broader community that depends upon commerce for connection to the wider world. Yet in sleep's democratic embrace, these distinctions fade into irrelevance as all citizens share the fundamental human need for rest that prepares minds and bodies for whatever challenges and opportunities await with dawn's return. In the villa of Marcus Aurelius Flavianus, where evening's religious observances concluded hours ago and the household has settled into sleep's protective embrace, the master and mistress of the house rest in their marriage bed with profound contentment that comes from lives well lived and love well shared. Marcus lies in the deep sleep of a man whose conscience is clear, whose work brings satisfaction rather than burden, and whose family relationships provide the emotional security that makes peaceful rest possible even in a world where uncertainty and danger exist beyond the protective walls of home and community. Beside him, Livia dreams of their daughter studying in Rome, her sleeping mind weaving together memory and imagination to create reassuring visions of family connections that transcend physical distance. In her dreams, she sees their beloved child thriving in the capital's intellectual environment while maintaining the values and character formation that began in this peaceful provincial home where love and wisdom guided her earliest development. These maternal dreams, processing the day's letters and concerns through sleep's mysterious alchemy, transform worry into hope and separation into anticipated reunion. Their marriage bed, crafted from finest olive wood and furnished with linens woven from Egyptian cotton, represents not just physical comfort, but the emotional security that 20 years of shared nights and mutual protection have created. The small household shrine visible from their window, where oil lamps burn in honor of protective deities who watch over their most intimate hours, casts gentle light that transforms their private chamber into a sacred space where love and trust create perfect conditions for restorative sleep. The villa's garden, visible through their open window, reveals night's special beauties to eyes that appreciate darkness's unique gifts. Night-blooming jasmine releases an intoxicating fragrance in the air cooled by gentle breezes that carry hints of the distant sea, while a fountain's musical splash provides a liquid lullaby that has guided the sleep of this household through countless peaceful nights. Olive trees, their ancient trunks silvered by moonlight, stand as silent witnesses to the enduring cycles of rest and renewal that make civilized life both possible and beautiful. In the modest home where Claudia Maxima has settled her children into beds blessed by maternal love and protected by the countless small rituals that make childhood's rest both safe and sweet, the night brings its deepest tenderness as the family that represents her heart's greatest achievement surrenders to sleep's healing embrace. 8-year-old Julia, clutching her treasured doll with its painted ceramic face and soft woolen dress, breathes with a slow rhythm of complete trust, her dreams already beginning to weave together the day's innocent adventures into fantastical narratives that will entertain and educate her sleeping mind to the dark hours. Beside her, 5-year-old Quintus has achieved a profound relaxation that characterizes healthy childhood. His sturdy little body completely abandoned to sleep's restoration, while his mind processes the days learning through dreams that transform simple experiences into magical adventures. His wooden toys, the miniature chariot, the painted soldiers, the collection of smooth stones that served as treasure in elaborate games of make-believe, rest on a small table beside his bed like faithful companions waiting to resume tomorrow's innocent campaigns and conquests. Claudia herself, having completed the final maternal duties that ensure her children's comfort and security, finds her own rest enhanced by the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing her family is safe, healthy, and genuinely happy. Her prayers, offered silently as drowsiness claimed her mind, express gratitude for another day of domestic harmony, while requesting continued divine protection for the small household that represents both her greatest responsibility and her most profound joy. The children's dreams, when they come, will be filled with the imagery of their daytime play transformed through sleep's creative power into adventures that surpass waking imagination. Julia will dream of becoming a wise empress who rules through kindness and justice, her sleeping mind processing the stories she has heard about powerful women who use their intelligence and compassion to benefit entire civilizations. Quintus will dream of leading brave armies against fantastic monsters, his young spirit working through concepts of courage and protection that will eventually mature into adult virtues of responsibility and service to community welfare. Above his bakery on the Via del Forno, Lucius Cornelius Maximus experiences a profound weariness that follows honest labor performed with dedication and skill. His powerful body, which rose before dawn to begin the sacred work of bread making and labored steadily through the morning's intense activity, now claims the rest it has earned through hours of service to his community's daily needs. The baker's simple sleeping quarters, furnished with only essential comfort, but blessed by the satisfaction that comes from meaningful work, provide exactly the refuge his tired muscles and peaceful conscience require. The lingering aroma of fresh bread, which permeates even his private chambers, serves as a constant reminder of his craft's importance to the community's daily survival and happiness. Tomorrow will bring renewed labor as demanding as today's, but also renewed satisfaction as his skill and dedication continue to provide the fundamental nourishment that makes all other activities possible. His dreams, when they come, will be filled with visions of perfect loaves emerging from ovens heated to ideal temperature, of customers' faces brightening with appreciation for bread that represents not just sustenance, but a continuation of traditions passed down through generations of skilled practitioners. The baker's sleep carries special significance because his work begins while others still rest, his pre-dawn labor creating the foundation upon which each day's community life is built. His peaceful rest tonight prepares him for tomorrow's early rising, when his devotion to craft and service will once again transform simple ingredients into the daily bread that nourishes bodies while representing the larger miracle of human cooperation that makes civilized life both possible and beautiful. Throughout Pompeii's residential districts, in homes grand and modest, elaborate and simple, the night brings the same essential gift of restorative sleep to citizens who have earned their rest through days devoted to work, family, and community service. In the grander villas where additional oil lamps burn before more numerous household deities, where servants make final rounds to ensure comprehensive security measures, and where families conduct more complex bedtime rituals reflecting enhanced social responsibilities, the same fundamental human needs find expression through forms appropriate to different circumstances, while serving identical purposes. The city's public spaces, now largely emptied of human activity except for protective presence of night watchmen, assume their own nocturnal character as moonlight transforms familiar daylight geography into something mysterious and beautiful. The Forum, where citizens gather during the day to conduct business and participate in political discussions, now stands as a monument to civic achievement illuminated by stars that have witnessed the rise of Roman civilization from small beginnings to world-changing influence. The great columns that frame the civic center cast deep shadows balanced by areas where celestial light reveals the marble surfaces with ethereal beauty that transforms practical architecture into poetry written in stone. The basilica, where judges heard legal cases and merchants concluded important contracts, rests in dignified silence, its empty chambers holding echoes of justice dispensed and agreements reached through processes that honor both law and equity. The amphitheater beyond the city walls, where gladiatorial contests and wild animal hunts provide spectacular entertainment for citizens who appreciate courage and skill, rests under the star-filled sky, while sand that absorbed today's training sessions awaits tomorrow's renewed preparation for contests that test character as much as strength. The gladiators themselves sleep in their quarters beneath the arena floor, their powerful bodies recovering from intense physical preparation, while their dreams process the mental disciplines required for combat that demands not just strength and speed, but intelligence and courage. Public fountains throughout the city continue their constant service, providing fresh mountain water while maintaining the steady musical background that helps define Pompeii's acoustic character. The water's flow, unchanged by darkness or light, represents Roman engineering's greatest achievements. Infrastructure that serves human needs with reliability that makes civilized life comfortable and convenient while creating conditions where arts, commerce, and family life can flourish. The streets themselves, paved with volcanic stone that will endure for centuries, carry the accumulated history of countless daily journeys. Merchants traveling to conduct business, children running to meet friends, families walking to temples for religious observances, couples strolling in the evening air to enjoy companionship and conversation. These stones have supported the footsteps of generations whose daily activities created the prosperity and harmony that make Pompeii a model of civilized community life. As the night reaches its deepest point and the last oil lamps are trimmed for safe burning through the remaining dark hours, as the final whispered prayers fade into silence and the last children surrender completely to sleep's protective embrace, Pompeii achieves a perfect stillness that represents civilization's greatest achievement: the creation of conditions where thousands of individual human beings can rest in security, confident in their community's stability, and grateful for the prosperity that makes their shared life genuinely joyful rather than merely tolerable. Mount Vesuvius, standing sentinel in the moonlight with its slopes silvered by celestial radiance, appears benign and protective in the peaceful darkness, its massive presence serving as a familiar landmark that helps define the geographical identity of this beloved city. The mountain that watches over their sleep seems to embody the same protective spirit that governs their human community, strong, reliable, and permanently dedicated to their welfare and security. In this moment of perfect tranquility, with stars maintaining their eternal vigil and gentle breezes carrying the mingled fragrances of jasmine and sea salt through quiet streets, Pompeii exists as a living testament to human achievement in creating communities where individual happiness serves collective welfare and where daily existence achieves a delicate balance between work and rest, between private satisfaction and social responsibility, that makes mortal life both meaningful and beautiful. The city dreams now as one entity, thousands of individual sleeping minds contributing to a collective vision of continued prosperity, enduring friendships, children's laughter, and the countless small pleasures that make each day worth living. These dreams, processed in today's experiences while preparing hearts and minds for tomorrow's opportunities, create an atmosphere of hope and contentment that will endure far beyond any individual lifetime, becoming part of the eternal human story communities where ordinary people discovered extraordinary happiness in life's simplest and most precious gifts. Sleep well, dear listener, and let the peaceful rhythms of ancient Pompeii guide you into your own restful dreams, where the deepest satisfactions await those who appreciate the profound beauty hidden within life's most ordinary and sacred moments.